Shenanigans. Thanks for joining me. Almost time for the weekend. As most of you know who follow entertainment news, Robert Sylvester Kelly, well-known R&B artist, has been sentenced to 30 years in New York. I'm going to bring you said information pertaining to the charges, the sentence. But before I do that, I want to read you some information pertaining to transmission of STDs in the state of New York. Thank you for joining me. Can you sue someone for giving you an STD in New York? Specifically, the law states any person who, knowing himself or herself to be infected with an infectious venereal disease, has sexual intercourse with another shall be guilty of a misdemeanor. In other words, failure to disclose knowledge of an STD to a sexual partner is a crime. This was dated April 22nd, 2015. Can you go to jail for giving someone an STD? Being convicted of sexual intercourse while infected with an STD can result in time in jail and a fine. If you are charged with this or any other crime as a result of having an STD, you should contact a New York criminal defense attorney as soon as possible. Is giving someone an STD a crime in New York? In New York, in addition to civil liability, there may be criminal charges for giving someone an STD. Since 2017, New York's Public Health Law Section 2307 criminalizes knowingly giving someone an STD. This was dated October 1st, 2020. That's said information. Let's see if there's something else I'd like to bring to you. Thank you all so much for joining me. Hope you all are well. This is pertaining to New York. STD law falls under tort law by definition. A tort occurs when one person's act, whether careless or intentional, causes an injury to another's personal property. If a tort, and that's spelled T-O-R-T if you need verification, has occurred, the party who committed the act may be held accountable for money damages. And this is a brief synopsis of that. In 1995, Catherine LaLue hired an STD lawyer after finding out that her lover, who was also her naval recruiter, gave her genital herpes. She and her STD attorney sued the U.S. government for a little $500,000 for compensation. Unfortunately for LaLue, the U.S. Court of Appeals ruled that she had no case. If the sex between her and her lover was non-consensual, assuming LaLue would not have had sex with him if she had known of the STD, it would count as battery. The U.S. government could not be held liable for battery. The question remains, could her lover be held accountable? Okay. It says, can anyone sue a sexual partner for the transmission of an STD? The answer is yes and no. Since the number of cases of STDs has grown, more and more people are getting STD attorneys to file civil lawsuits against their infectors. Unfortunately, for most these victims, a lawsuit over STDs can be very hard to litigate, extremely costly to pursue, and of little remedy even if they win, unless the plaintiff practices a monogamous sexual relationship, providing which partner transmitted the disease can be possible, since many STDs show no immediately visible symptoms. Even if the infector can be identified, proving negligence can be just as difficult. Lastly, views on sexuality vary among states. Judges and juries in conservative areas can make a lawsuit daunting. The STD law of New York states that an individual who has a sexually transmitted disease is obligated to disclose the fact to his or her partner prior to sexual contact. New York Public Health Law 2307 states that any person who, knowing himself or herself to be infected with an infectious venereal disease, has sexual intercourse with another shall be guilty of a misdemeanor. Non-disclosure of such information is a crime. Coming down with a sexually transmitted disease is one of the biggest blows a person can receive. While there are treatments to control the symptoms of many venereal diseases, there is still no cure for HIV/AIDS and genital herpes. This is by hg.org. If you need verification for the information, I bring you this because this information has been relayed in allegations against Robert Sylvester Kelly that he knowingly gave women an STDs known as herpes, and I will now bring you the set information pertaining to the sentence. Thank you for joining me. If you'd like to donate to the channel, $Big 129 Cash App. All super chat stickers are welcome during this live. How do you all feel about the verdict? Did the judge get it right? His lawyers are saying it's not a RICO act. There was no conspiracy between he and others to abuse, sexually assault anyone, children. What do you think? Drop your comments below. Thank you for joining me. This is Everyday Shenanigans. We're going to replay allegations from women. His wife, one of the young ladies who is one of the women who said he gave her an STD. We're going to go back in the vault pertaining to Robert Sylvester Kelly. And you feel free to give your commentary pertaining to your opinion. Please be respectful. After my information and my commentary, I will call upon one of my mods who will weigh in on her opinion pertaining to this sentence of Robert Sylvester Kelly. Thank you all so very much for joining me. Court TV is the source. Number one. And please be respectful in the chat. Thank you all so much. Yes, hello, Mr. Hunter. Thank you for joining me. Yes, 30 years will most definitely hold him down.
Disgraced R&B singer R. Kelly has now been sentenced to 30 years. Last year, a federal jury found Kelly guilty of racketeering and sex trafficking charges. The trial and public outcry was fueled in part by the widely watched docuseries Surviving R. Kelly. The 55-year-old has been in jail since 2019, and he also still faces child pornography and obstruction of justice charges in Chicago. Joining me now on set, we have, we're outside of the New York Federal Courthouse. We do have our Court TV legal correspondent, Julia Janae. Apologies, Julia. I just wanted to make sure that you were with us here. Tell us the latest and what happened when the judge read this sentence.
No, Judge Ashley, no emotion from this defendant in learning that his sentence would be 30 years. And the breakdown of that is 360 months on that top count that included those racketeering charges, the ones that carried up to a life sentence for some of them. But then she also, on the counts 3 through 9, gave him 20 years, 3, 4, 5, 7, and 9 in particular, those counts. And then counts 2, 6, and 8, she gave him 10 years. So 30, 20, and 10 for various counts in this multi-count indictment, but ultimately those all run concurrently. So 30 years is what he is looking at being behind bars in this case.
Right, I know you just said that you saw no emotion from R. Kelly, and it's my understanding, but I just want to confirm this, that he in fact did not make any statement during his sentencing hearing.
That is correct. He was given that opportunity. The judge advised him of his rights, and his attorney spoke for him and said that she wants to make it clear on the record. This is attorney Jennifer Bongine. She's new on his case, and she said that because he had these pending cases, 2 in Illinois, 1 in Minnesota, that he is not going to be making any statements. The court did ask Kelly if that was in fact his wish, and we heard that voice. It's a familiar voice to so many of us who know him from his music and just the things that he has said in public, saying, Your Honor, that's my wish. So that's the extent of what we heard from Robert Kelly. We do have sound with his attorney from before this sentence came down. Let's take a listen to Bongine this morning heading into court.
Attorney Bongine, what do you expect to come out of the sentencing today? Well, hopefully we'll have a reasonable sentencing hearing where Mr. Kelly is treated fairly and not by way of non-justice.
And are you encouraged, being new to his case, and what's going to change about it now that you are a part of it?
Well, we are really looking forward to the appeal. That's what I can say. We believe that we have excellent arguments on appeal and that the Court of Appeals will ultimately determine that this case was overcharged and that there was no enterprise.
Are you expecting any impact that this will have on his other cases that are pending? Are you representing him in those two?
I am, and they're fairly unrelated. He's feeling fine. We are ready for this. Obviously, sentencing is never a pleasant day when you've been...
Let me pause right there. Thank you all for joining me. Welcome everybody in the chat. I try not to talk during the commentary. She says they are fairly not related. They're fairly not related, his other cases. Lady, what are you talking about? And appealing, why appeal? You're going to appeal a 30-year sentence when he still has other trials to go to attend in other jurisdictions, such as his own home, Chicago, my home as well, I'm baffled. She says they're not related, basically. Yeah, they're related. Bonjour. I don't know if she's French or what. They are related. He going to a USP, not a FCI, okay? Very interesting information. She says they are fairly related. Basically saying they're not related. Yeah, they're related because he's got to be extradited from New York to the Chi when it's time to go to trial there, ma'am. So I say they're quite related. Wow. And how do you all feel about appealing, wasting taxpayers' money, shuffling paper? See, all this is costly. And we have heard that Mr. R. Kelly has no money. So who's paying for this? Because the court wants him to pay, I'm sure, for documents, filing documents. Yeah, they do that now. They charge the defendant for filing paperwork, shuffling paperwork, because that's the point. It is a job to just file paperwork. And when you're dealing with a case such as this, where you've got different witnesses, this and that, subpoenaing people, gathering evidence, it is very costly and very expensive. Why not just cut your losses, Mr. Robert Sylvester Kelly, and say, okay, I'm guilty. I'm going to go ahead and plea out the other jurisdictions to put an end to this, as to try to sever some piece of life. He's in his mid-50s. He should know that he is not getting any younger. He's also had health issues while being incarcerated in the Chicago jail. So, and I guess also here in New York. So why not just cut your losses and plea out? Because depending on how much time you're offered in a plea in the other jurisdictions, hell, it is a life sentence. If you do 20 years, that's a whole life of someone. Okay? 25 is a life sentence in itself. So I think Mr. Kelly needs to assess the situation and stop dicking around the process, the due process. Just be done with it, because 30 years, you have to hope that somebody will show favor to you in the state of New York and say, well, I think he's done enough time, be it 6 years, 10 years. Okay, we're going to let him go. So then imagine you've got jurisdictions holding you somewhere else. You get out of jail, it's the same thing what you're going through now. You get out early in the state of New York, you're still remanded over somewhere else. Why not put an end to it? You also hear he has regrets. Is he regretful? Is he remorseful? What are his regrets? You regret what? Seeking out children, boys and girls, because that has been told. Men and women. And my thing is, what people do behind closed doors as adults is their business. And it doesn't also mean that people are consenting to certain things, even as adults. A person may say, well, let's do this. I like this. And a person may say, well, no, I'm not into that. Is he the type that's going to admit, yeah, I've coerced people, men and women, into doing some sexual things I wanted, but they did not. They complied, or I forced them. He's not going to admit that. And many people won't. Thank you for joining.
He's been convicted, but he's strong, and we are going to get through this.
Tell us, why are you asking for less than 10 in comparison to what the prosecution's asking 25? What's the justification?
Well, we believe that the offenses for which he's been convicted do not justify a sentence greater than 10 years. We believe there's significant mitigation, and we believe that's the appropriate sentence. I guess you wait and find out.
And we, of course, learned that he was not going to be speaking on the record. Part of that sentence is his supervised release. Once he is out, he would go on the federal sex offender registry. That's what the judge said at the end of that sentence handed down for this former singer.
All right, and Julia, tell us, how has the reaction there been? Because we know there were victim impact statements. You've given us some great details about what those were like. We also know some of R. Kelly's family. Any reaction that you've been able to gauge there at the courthouse?
Well, Well, Judge Ashley, these accusers and victims who spoke today during the victim impact, they were raw. They spoke directly to Robert Kelly in instances, making sure that he knew how they felt and really taking the time to share what they'd gone through and detailing not only that they knew that he had been a victim of abuse too, something that his defense argued, trying to get a lesser sentence in this case, but saying that that was no excuse, and that was echoed by the judge. But I do want to show you one woman, Faith. Actually, let me start with Jane Doe, number 9. She is someone who said that the abuse started with him grooming me, that he made me to believe he was the only one I could trust. He made me travel with him to be his sex slave. And not a day goes by that I don't think about what happened to me. Today, I'm 45 and a mother, diagnosed with PTSD, depression, and anxiety from being abused over and over. And then she spoke directly to Kelly saying, Robert, you destroyed so many people's lives just because you were abused. It is not an excuse. I want to see you get help. You probably hear behind me, there's some commotion going on. And sometimes there have been clashes here when it comes to different members of Robert Kelly's camp, some who are supporters, some who claim to be members of his family. That could be what we are seeing behind us, but everyone, of course, in anticipation for what is to come. Judge Ashley, most of these victims say they want him to spend the rest of his life behind bars, but in particular, there was a father who spoke today of one of the victims, and that's Faith. I actually want to read first what she said. She said she wasn't going to speak. She was going to let her father speak for her, but once she heard these victims speak before her, she decided she did want to speak. And she said that, first of all, that she accepted her own mistakes in this. At times she said yes when she should have said no. But she also apologized to her parents and said that she forgot about the way that they raised her during this time, that she was chased, and that something that she wasn't ready to happen happened, and that she was abused. Now, over right now.
Let me read Faith's statement. Thank you for joining me. I do believe this is one of the women who contracted herpes from Robert Sylvester Kelly. I apologize to my parents for forgetting about the way you raised me. I was chasing something I wasn't ready for and ended up being abused, quote unquote. Very interesting information. We know that Robert Kelly, which has been reported by his own brothers, that they had succumbed to abuse as children in their own house by their sister. A sister was touching boys, I believe, Robert Kelly, from known information. Abused by their own sister, which leads one to believe that the sister possibly was abused by someone in the family or a neighbor, because where would she learn that behavior? Touching her own brother. So we know that children are curious, but it is a high probability that a child touching his own sibling, someone had been touching the children. It has been alleged that the sister was touching the boys. Also, a neighbor. The boys gave that in commentary, that they had a male neighbor that was inappropriate with his children. So there'll be a higher probability to also offend. And it has been known that a boy can do it and a girl can do it. But you hear and see a high stats of men, boys growing up to be offenders, sexual sadists, because they've been touched, abused. And one needs to seek help. And most people are probably ashamed to say they are attracted to their own siblings and or family members and children. So they don't get help. So now you have an adult walking around women, men, boys, girls, it's all the same, whatever their sexual desires are for. It's just wrong, especially when you're talking about children. That is the reason why Robert sought out young girls and boys as well, because he didn't have much of a childhood. You hear that. Growing up, staying inside all the time, not coming out. Why? I don't know why that one child did not interact with other children in a normal capacity such as his other brothers and sisters. I find it very interesting. I never really got information to why he was the one that wanted to stay in. Was it because he was a shy child? He was quiet. Then you factor in being abused by a neighbor and your sister. Then I believe he started to act out, because in the documentary you will hear one of the teachers say he did or said something to her very vile. She would never repeat what it was, but she knew that Robert was sick. This was in high school. We also know that he didn't finish school. Why not? Why didn't the mother make her child finish school? You see, these are all the things that factor into how you turn out as a human being. The little things. Being abused by a family member, friend. Now you're accustomed to being touched inappropriately and also reciprocating. Doing sexual acts as a child when that's not what you're supposed to be doing as a child. Now you're desiring to do that. You're craving to do that. You don't know how to deal with that. Nobody to talk to. You're not telling anybody what you're doing and what's been done to you. Now, time's flying by, you're older, and now you're an adult, and you're seeking out victims now. You're at the point of no return. And I think it's interesting they mentioned this in court. Lawyers trying to probably get a lesser sentence because he was abused. But the things Robert was doing as an adult, nobody's going to care that you were abused as a child. Because that's the thing about becoming an adult. It doesn't matter what happened to you as a child in the eye. To some people, they don't care. They feel like, well, you're grown, you should know better. It doesn't matter. I mean, it matters to some degree, but it's true that once you're an adult, you're judged as an adult. You're judged as an adult. People expect you to walk and act like an adult, which we know none of us have been mature as soon as we turn 18. But that is what is expected of you. To act like you have some sense about yourself, some manners, some etiquette. But that is not always so. What's this underlying problem with Robert Kelly being abused as a child? Then he grows up to be an adult abusing others, children and adults. Did he know what he was doing was wrong? The fact that he had other people help him, you can throw the abuse card out the window, because he had an entourage of people who knew he was a sadist, who knew he was seeking out children, young girls, and they were on board. And I also have a problem with that, because you know it's wrong for you to be going up to a damn child to hand out a grown man's telephone number. Come on now. Handing the number to a woman is one thing, or a man, but not a child. And you can look at a girl and say, that little girl is a little girl. That is not an adult. So you're a part of it. And that's where the RICO Act comes in. Because the man initially couldn't read or write. So that means he had to have people to navigate on his behalf. And that's where the conspiracy comes in. Because once it was proven that he couldn't read or write, you can't make 12 members of a jury and outside parties believe he was booking flights, transportation to and fro, signing checks, payoffs. How can he do that if he can't read or write? And that's where the conspiracy charges come in. Taking a child from state to state is illegal. And then you are using them for sex. So when you're crossing state lines, that is where you get a human trafficking charge. See, a lot of people don't want to own the fact that this is what he was doing. And he had help. And he did. It's not a lie. It's not made up. It's not fiction. It's the truth. He had help. And you're just as foul to go along, because there's no way for the almighty dollar, I'm going to help you seduce children. You want to sleep with different men and women, that's your business. But there were girls, and there's no telling how many. That's another thing. How many there were. If you count how many children he's obviously slept with, from the time he went into the industry as a young person before he became famous, up until being incarcerated, there's probably way more than 30. So you're getting off easy with just 30 years. That's not counting how many times you touched a child or had sexual relations with an underage person. Just a little information for you. No excuse, abused or not, that's my opinion.
Right now, we are actually seeing the attorney for for Robert Kelly walking out, and she is about to give a statement, Ashley. That is what's happening behind me. But really heartbreaking testimony today from these victims. And the father of Fade, he told Robert Kelly that he actually doesn't
All
want
right,
to see him
Julia, I'm
spend the
sorry
rest of
to
his life
interrupt you, but I think I need to interrupt you simply because we're going to take that live, this statement.
The Court of Appeals. We've always believed in those arguments, and we believe that this enterprise was overcharged, and that the Second Circuit Court of Appeals will see it that way. Can you share what he said to you after the sentence was read? He was just asking for some clarifications about some of the terms that were read to him. As you all know, Mr. Kelly has some literacy issues, so it's really important there's a great deal of things that have to be explained in a little more slowly. So, how do you feel about the sentence? Well, I mean, obviously he's devastated. 30 years in prison is like a life sentence for him. But at the same time, you know, we knew the government was asking for 25 years. We were prepared for what the judge might impose. So it didn't come as a great big surprise. We were prepared for it, and we are now prepared to fight this appeal. For us, it's just the beginning of the fight, frankly. So we were prepared going into for today, and he's doing okay with this. A statement in allocution? Well, that was on advice of counsel. That was on my advice. Because he has pending cases. It's obvious. He's got pending cases, and he has a Fifth Amendment right to remain silent, and I advised him to invoke that Fifth Amendment right. I promise you, he does want to make a statement. He will make statements eventually, but on the advice of counsel, he remains silent today.
What can you say to the problem that he's not guilty?
Too many people trying to talk.
The appeal will lay out that the enterprise that was charged, as you will see if you've read my post-trial motions, which you probably have not, our position is this was not a RICO or racketeering act violation. These were isolated events that happened many years ago, and the government simply tried to plead around the statute of limitations to bring it in a RICO charge, which was inappropriate. So, I mean, all I can tell you is there was no enterprise. There was no enterprise. It was one man with allegations by a number of women, which doesn't make it an enterprise. And that is why he's not guilty of racketeering.
What did you mean by that? You said he didn't have to confess without even
I said he has regrets and he is sad. Nobody wants to hear what he heard today. He's a human being. He feels what other people are feeling, but that doesn't mean that he can accept responsibility in the way that the government would like him to and the way other people would like him to, because he disagrees. He is not. He disagrees with the characterizations that have been made about him.
Let's stop right there. He's a human being. Indeed, he is. And sometimes people try to separate the act from the human in order to try to comprehend the allegations and or the evidentiary material against the said person. A lot of people favor R. Kelly even now because they just refuse to accept that he's a predator. He's a sadist. He has an appetite for young girls and boys and women and men as well. A huge sexual appetite. That's been said time and time again by many people. He has regrets, but yet he doesn't agree with the characterizations. So then what is it that he's regretting? Because how can you have regrets if you don't own what you have been accused of? You're saying, well, they're wrong. The accusations are not true. There's no racketeering. There's no conspiracy, plural. I haven't done these things. It's all consensual sex. So then what regrets do we have? R. Kelly, what are you regretting? Are you regretting that you met these people? that you had sex with these people, you're regretting what? Because he hasn't spoken. She says he will speak at a later time. I don't know when that is. She's advised him not to speak. He's concurred. So I'd like to know what are his regrets, because I can't see you having regrets if you don't own the allegations. So one is going to ask, then what are you regretting? I am curious. Does he have remorse? But that goes back to not owning what you're accused of. You can't have remorse if you feel like you haven't done anything. If you say, I plead not guilty, I am innocent of the said charges. They are wrong. All my interactions with these participants that you've brought into the court were consensual, then how could he have remorse? Because they are accusing him of said behaviors, crimes. So see, they all go hand in hand. Regret, remorse, and the allegations. You can't regret something if you didn't do it. And as Dr. Phil would tell you, you can't change what you don't acknowledge. Come on, Queen, bring it to him. You cannot change what you don't acknowledge. This is the very reason why when people do things to you knowingly, willfully, they can't apologize. Because why would they apologize if they don't think they've done anything to you? Checkmate. Didi says that he got caught. Perhaps. Running in family? Perhaps. And we know abuse is rampant in a lot of people's family. That's why children grow up to become sadists, because they've been abused. It's just a known fact. And it's no one's fault to be touched inappropriately by someone, taken advantage of. But the problem becomes you acting it out time and time and time again. Now you're an adult and you are now legal age and you're exacting those behaviors onto others. It's a crime. And you don't seek help. That is what has happened to Robert. I'd like to know what the sister has to say, the one who abused him as a child. She's mentioned, how does she feel? Because my understanding, they always kept a good rapport, he and that sister. But you'd have to be embarrassed to hear your personal business in the street, that you touched your brother. And she was a child. One could excuse the behavior only because she was a child, perhaps. Somebody taught it to her. But it's still embarrassing nonetheless that that has come out to the general public and it's played out in the media. That you are part of the reason your brother is ill. But then that still goes to somebody 9 times out of 10 touched her. So she's acting out what has been done to her. It's a very vicious story. And, you know, there were allegations from his own brother, who was one that's aiding him now, that Robert made a pass at him. And that was the most disgusting thing I'd ever heard. Besides the sister messing with a younger brother, which was Robert, now Robert's grown, making a pass at his own damn brother. And he said it. He did it to see what I would do, how I would respond. As he told him, the 2 Roberts. The Robert up there on the poster, R. Kelly, and then there's me, Robert. So it's like he knew he was sick. Alternate personality, I don't know. But he realized it was two Roberts. And to me, that's very interesting because he can differentiate the two. Thank you for joining me. This is Everyday Shenanigans.
He disagrees with the characterizations that have been made about him. But that doesn't mean he's not a human being and can't feel something when other people are in pain.
Is his abuser here today? You said that his sister abused him as he was a kid. He has 4 people here today.
Yes, he has a number of friends here today. No, his sister is not here today. He's been estranged from her for quite some time. He has 2 brothers who are fully in support of him.
So now you hear that the sister did not attend court, the one who allegedly abused him as a child. and she says he's been estranged from her for some time. Why is that? I find that very interesting because before all this stuff unfolded, my understanding is that he and that sister were in good standing. He would never turn on her or discuss what happened with them as children. Now here it is, 2022, you have a lawyer saying he has been estranged from her for some time. I'd like to know how long, because what will be interesting is if it started when all the allegations came out, the posse broke up from that tower they were living in with the two girls when the house of cards began to fall for R. Kelly. Is this when he became estranged from that sister? Is when allegations started to jump out and she became the focal point as well as his abuser as a child. That it became overwhelming, people talking about her, the documentary coming out. It's when we heard all these allegations of family abuse. People know her by name, by face. That would be, as I said, overwhelming to have your secret out in the street, to be known as the girl who abused her brother. Because that's the thing about life, that once your secrets are out, you still have to be able to walk around. Now you hear her saying he does feel pain. He is a human being. He feels pain for these women, their allegations. Once again, it goes back to what I just said. How can you feel pain if you didn't commit the crime? How can I identify with what you're saying I did if I don't think I did anything to you? You could say what? Well, I'm sorry you feel that way, but I didn't do that to you. Is that what we're saying? That Robert feels bad that they feel bad, but he doesn't feel bad for what? I'm confused. He feels bad that they're in pain, but he ain't done nothing. I'm sorry you feel that way. Because you've heard people say that when you confront people, when they've wronged you allegedly, they say, some people say, well, I feel bad you feel that way. I'm sorry you feel that way, but I don't feel like I've done that to you, or whatever, plural. So is that what Robert Kelly is saying to his attorneys? I feel bad that they are in pain, but I didn't do anything to them. Very interesting.
He has two brothers who are fully in support of him, who were also victims of sexual abuse in his household. So they are here in spirit, although not here personally. So no.
You spoke about fiancé Joy. Have you had the opportunity to speak to Joy?
Yes, I speak to Joy regularly, and Joy is just fine. She is sad, but she told him, and she sent me a text message telling him to pray and put it in God's hands, and she loves him, and they're going to get through this. That's what she had to say to him.
Is he a predator?
No, he's not. No, he's not a predator.
You're saying where's the other members of the
Jennifer Bonjean, B-O-N-J-E-A-N.
Are you saying this is sexual abuse?
So you hear this Joy, I'm assuming that's his sister, I guess. Pray, pray, pray. Well, had he leaned on prayer in the beginning, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Maybe there was never prayer involved, obviously. They're asking about the enterprise. Where are they? Very good question. Exactly, where are they? Because there's so many them, those, they. You don't have enough fingers. See, that's the thing about money. People hang around you for that very reason, because you got that paper. They're not really there because they like you, supporting you. Many famous people will tell you that. People have fallen out with their own family members when they became famous or came into some money. And money is damn near the root to all evil, they say. You entitled your interpretation. But people will hang on to you for that small change or big change, however you want to view it. And I think that's what happened with Robert. The fact that people realized he was illiterate, he was just a damn mule. Let's get all we can get. He don't know nothing. He's a dummy. And see, his sexual appetite is what brought him down. Besides not being able to read and write, he was glutton for punishment. You have a sexual appetite for children and women and men, boys, girls. You can't stop yourself. You're paying people to aid you in this foolishness, this felonious behavior. You can't read or write, so you don't know what you're signing. You don't have any inkling to what you have in your own damn bank account. He told Gayle King that years ago in an interview. Man had never been to a bank, if you'd believe that. So he was going to fall either way, sexual appetite or not, because he couldn't read or write. And who better to hoodwink out their money is somebody who's illiterate. Stay woke. You see, all the time he spent chasing skirts and pants, he should have been getting a GED. Should have been learning how to manage his money. See, it's an old saying, you trust people with your money. Oprah Winfrey said it best, always sign your own checks. Never let anybody sign your money. Checkmate. Exactly. Because many people have been robbed from their own family. Using your mother, father, brother, sister as your money manager, mistake number one. Don't ever mix business with pleasure. Because what starts out as familiarity, trust, loyalty, becomes blind fury later down the road. And that's what has happened with Robert Sylvester Kelly. Trusting people to do right by him. But in the end, all they cared for was the money and the limelight to say, I'm in the company of Robert Kelly. But you're bragging about nothing because you're in the company of a sadist. And now you have to look at those said parties. Where are they now? You see, all good things must come to an end. And he didn't have proper rearing. He didn't have anyone guiding him properly, mentally, physically, spiritually, financially. That's why Robert Kelly is in the shape he's in today. He was misled. And there was nobody to guide him, to help him. And it's sad because he could have gone on to do better things than what he had already done as far as music. But behind the music, a lot of sadists. And many people don't want to accept that. That is what he is. Because some of the allegations are just outright ridiculous. Filming of women, all that. We'll talk about all that. That has nothing to do with childhood trauma. You filming somebody performing sexual acts on you and vice versa. Filming yourself with a child, 13 years old, 14 years old. What does that have to do with childhood trauma? You had to know that was a child. You can look at a body and say, this is a child. Naked, she looks like a child. She doesn't look like a woman. But you proceeded anyway. And those tapes went around the United States and probably the world. All his escapades filmed, hidden camera. You can't make somebody believe you didn't know what you were doing because a camera can't set itself up.
We just went over some of the terms that the judge was rated, and we were actually going to have a lot of he was pretty good. Thank you very much.
We're going to end that because she's ending that press conference. She's rallying for her client because that's her job. She's being paid. But then let's talk about that. If he doesn't have any money, how is she being paid? How is she and the other attorneys being paid? Very interesting information. Let's go there. That first source was Court TV. Let's hear what the victims have to say. Fox 5 New York is the second source. Thank you so much for joining me.
Time ago, 17, I'm 45 today. I never thought that I would be here to see him be held accountable for the atrocious things that he did to children. I don't know what else to say except that I'm grateful. I'm grateful for today. And I'm grateful that Robert Sylvester Kelly is away and will stay away and will not be able to harm anyone else. Thank you.
Was that one that he did in your life?
He ruined it.
That was how?
I was an up-and-coming singer. I was a girl full of life, very innocent but very driven, and preyed upon basically at the mall in Aventura, Florida, and promised just a mentorship and quickly turned into, I would just say, a sex slave.
I started this journey 30 years ago. I was 14 years old when I encountered Robert Sylvester Kelly. There wasn't a day in my life up until this moment that I actually believed that the judicial system would come through for Black and brown girls. I stand here very proud of my judicial system, very proud of my fellow survivors, and very pleased with the outcome. 30 years did he do this, and 30 years is what he got. I thank the prosecution, I thank my attorney Gloria Aldridge, and I thank all of you all that have stood in support of us for so long.
Let me recap what you're hearing. The first woman, I don't know if she's of Hispanic descent, but she's older, mid-40s. He approached her at 17. She was a singer looking for mentorship, and next thing you know, it has become a sexual relationship with Mr. Kelly. The second woman speaking is an African-American female who said she met him at 14. Now that's younger than 17, most definitely a child. You want me to believe he didn't know she was 14. And it's not to say that he couldn't have picked out women, of course, assuming they were women. But you're going to hear this story through and through, that a lot of these young women were not women. They were females who were children. And as I said, once you cross state lines with a child and you are performing sexual acts with them, it is human trafficking. Because that is your only source of a relationship, is you're having sex with them. You don't really like them. And you're transporting them from town to town, city to city, state to state, plane, train, bus, caravan. It's human trafficking. It's a child. Now, many will say, well, where were their parents? Well, I've seen young girls travel with a man. I think back in history, a certain individual I knew of who fancied young girls. He knew it was wrong what he was doing. And it's no telling what version he gave their parents for where he was taking the girls to travel. And a lot of parents are just stupid, green. Either green or just stupid to let their child go off with a grown man somewhere. Because the answer should be no. No. My child cannot go out of town with you nowhere. I mean, you have to be careful, even if it's a child saying, well, my father's going to take us to a baseball game or to the picture show. A parent is trusting that the father, parent, guardian is going to be respectful in how they treat the child. You don't think that you let your child go with somebody, a neighbor, and their father, that the father is going to be touching the children. But that's the thing. You don't know the parent. You may know the mother, but you don't know the father. And you have to be careful who you let your children go with, even in a very innocent situation. And I'm sure that has come up a lot in these cases. Where were their parents? But you heard one woman tell us that her mother didn't care where she was. The girl that was always in the company of R. Kelly when she was young, about 16, 17 years old. Her mother didn't care where she was, what she was doing. And there are a lot of parents who don't care. They don't care if their kids go to school. They don't care if their kids come home. They don't care if their kids are eating. They don't care. And to some degree, I don't believe that young lady is lying. While she was standing outside the courtroom when R. Kelly was going to trial his first time in Chicago many moons ago for those sex tapes that got leaked out, that is how she became to meet Robert Kelly, is standing outside the courtroom rallying for him when she should have been in school. Stay woke. Stay woke. She should have been in school. Instead, she's out rallying for a sadist. So see, that's my point. Her mom didn't even know she wasn't even going to school. Why not? This is before she even met R. Kelly. And I think many of you know who I'm speaking of. She's standing outside the courtroom, rallying for child predator.
I can't speak to why it takes anyone the amount of time that it takes. But they've done their homework, they've presented their case, and now we have justice in our judicial system. They were not paying attention to the details that were being articulated to them. I won't say that they were not paying attention. I will say that they were not listening for details. Being in a situation is affords you the ability to be re-victimized over and over again in different areas of your life. When you are taught to be quiet and to keep silent about things that should be spoken about openly, you find yourself reclused, and that often affords people the ability to manipulate you.
All right, everybody, thank you so much. That is one of the victims speaking out. Thank you so much. Fox 5 is the source. Let's talk about the music. We're going to go to Good Morning Britain. What they have to say over there and across the pond. Should we stop listening to criminals' music? Very interesting, because over time you've seen many men come up with allegations of sexual assault, date rape, drugging women, Bill Cosby, Epstein, Weinstein. So should we stop watching their movies? Because Weinstein was a mega mogul producer, a production company, well known. He and his brother brought that house of cards down. You have sports figures who've been accused of rape, sodomy. So it goes deeper than just music, entertainment in general. Should we stop listening to the music? Good Morning Britain is the source.
Been found guilty of, and there's still more to come as well. But you don't believe that we need to wipe his music from the streaming services, and actually we need to work out how to separate the art from the artist?
Yeah, I think primarily people should have the choice not to listen to people like R. Kelly, or even people like Gary Glitter, for example, who was a convicted paedophile. What people tend to do is they tend to use their own hearts and their own minds, and they make the conscious decision not to listen to that individual's music. And I think we should trust individuals to make those sorts of choices rather than telling them that they can't listen to things, because then I think you go down a bit of a slippery slope. For example, Michael Jackson, he wasn't actually convicted of anything. He was accused of obviously child abuse, and that then resulted in him being not played by certain radio stations, etc., etc. And I think that it just goes down a slippery slope. People should have the freedom to choose what they listen to, and we can separate that art.
So not an outright ban. It's uncomfortable though, isn't it, Lonyo? I mean, you know, I have a radio show, didn't play R. Kelly before, so aren't going to suddenly play him now, but I'm sure there are brands within the same family of radio stations which did, and they will be uncomfortable about putting him on the radio, or indeed other artists that have had allegations against them.
It's a fantastic statement. First of all, good morning.
Good morning.
Let's get comfortable with the uncomfortable. Dominique's right, I agree to some of the stuff she's made, I agree with. It is a slippery slope, but we have to put on some boots which have got good grip. And let's address some of these issues. It's R. Kelly, as she says, who's been found guilty, we can say that. Gary Glitter, more widely in the entertainment world, people like Harvey Weinstein. It could be a bit viewed as a bit old school. For me, take it all down.
You would never put him in your DJ set?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, but then that's a conscious choice that you're making. And generally what we've seen is that radio stations are not playing R. Kelly's music, that it's not really being played by DJs unless someone explicitly says, you know, play that R. Kelly song. Right. So I think, do you not think that people should have the freedom to make that decision? Do you not think that's more powerful rather than...
The freedom of choice is one thing, absolutely. I'm all for freedom of choice. People ask me in my set, can you play this certain R. Kelly song? And so to avoid, an aggressive response, I just say I haven't got it. Maybe the next DJ might play it. But earning money, earning revenue, it's an uncomfortable conversation. It's very, very, very.
I feel about some of the artists that have worked alongside R. Kelly, some of those sort of producers and writers that weren't complicit in what he was doing, maybe didn't know about it. We don't know the circumstances of that. And then all of a sudden, the music being stripped means that they aren't able to earn money from the work that they did, purely out of their love of doing the work.
It's a nightmare, Ben. Yeah. It's a nightmare for them because there's musicians, there's studio artists, there's session musicians, there's songwriters. But if we're going to talk about nightmares, it's more of a nightmare for the families that are involved in all these things. That's what I'm worried about. People like Harvey Weinstein who have made these big shows as well. You've got makeup, script writers, directors. Of course it's a nightmare. But we have to be accountable and we have to stand up and say, actually, let's start and let's be comfortable with the uncomfortableness of this whole thing.
If we widen it out to artists that have committed crimes pre getting their success, who have found success after committing a crime and then perhaps to go on to commit another crime, it can get quite messy, can't it? And if you were going to legislate and say, we're taking those artists off the platform where they can earn any money, it becomes quite complicated.
It is complicated. Like I said, it's a nightmare. It's a minefield. And we all go down that road of, well, it's a nightmare, it's a minefield, maybe it's hard to do. Why don't we try? Why don't we try and go
I suppose the argument for not trying would be that somebody is in a bad place at one time in their life, different sorts of crimes perhaps than this. They then have some musical success, they then maybe fall back into that bad place. And suddenly you are passing a moral judgment on someone's behaviour rather than reacting to their art.
And if you're doing it to one sort of crime, which is obviously R. Kelly's type of crime, which is a sexual crime, who's to say that you can't then say anyone else who commits another type of crime, for example, a violent crime, should also have their music wiped? A lot of people's favourite rappers would probably...
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, I think for me, specifically with the R. Kelly case and other people like Harvey Weinstein and people like that, there's been a process, there's been a thought process, there's been an execution process, many different junctures they could have stopped and they carried it through. So to then afterwards say it's going to be a bit of a nightmare and a bit of a minefield to take their stuff down, let's just crack on with it. We keep making excuses, and I'm not saying we generally, I'm just saying people make excuses. Let's crack on and get these things solved, because these crimes are heinous and we can't forget we've all got brothers, sisters, nieces, nephews, and it's happened to these people.
Dominic, does the idea of stripping them from the services send out a really, really powerful message, as Lonnie was saying, to artists out there who may be taking advantage of the position they're in? Because that's ultimately what's happened here. R. Kelly has finally been found guilty of manipulating his position as a celebrity for his own ends. Is that actually it's a purging of that side of the industry that has been so carcinogenic?
Yeah, I mean, it depends, because the people that would be wiping the music from their platforms, they would be, essentially the powers that be, the top of Spotify, the top of YouTube. It wouldn't actually be sort of a grassroots response. So by taking the power essentially away from the people, you are then not letting them give their individual verdict and saying, hey, I don't endorse what you've done. And I think if you allow these streaming platforms to have that much power over people that do things that are reprehensible or perhaps they disagree with, even politically, for example, you then give those platforms the power to do a lot more. And that's the issue with censorship, is how it can be taken advantage of.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks for...
All right, everybody, that's Good Morning Britain. Very valid points made in this commentary. How far do you take it? Because as they said, you have rappers who have committed crimes, accused of crimes, violent crimes. Do you pull their music from streaming platforms? Should R. Kelly's music be pulled from streaming platforms? How do the other artists feel who have worked with R. Kelly? As they said, it runs long in the industry of entertainment, music, movies. As I said, with Weinstein and production company, they produce many movies. So now, what do you say? Stop all the movies from being played? Be a lot. It'd be a lot. People worked with other artists, produced their music, worked with them as well, sang on the track. Now, they don't get any money if you stop playing. So it goes even deeper than just the defendant who's been accused of a crime or charged with a crime, cutting back their music, movies, There are other people who are also involved in the project. So how far do we take this? I can honestly say I was out probably a week or two ago. R. Kelly's song came on. And yes, I'm bobbing my head, but my mind was telling me, you shouldn't be doing this. But it's just a natural instinct when you hear something that you've been used to hearing a long time. You like the song. You naturally bob your head, snap your fingers, sway, and then it registers. Oh my goodness, I shouldn't be listening to this. This man's a sadist. And that's the sick part of knowing what he's done, been accused of. Great music, but not a great person. So how do we separate the two? The athlete from the act, the musician from the act, the entertainer from the act. It would be very hard. It is hard. It would be very hard. Now, that's something to ponder on, because many people have been accused of all types of crimes, not just sexual assault, but theft, robbery, physical assault. Do we stop engaging in anything that they are a part of or have done because of accusations and charges? And also political. She made a very valid point, this young lady, in this commentary. What about political affiliations and commentary? Do you just stop the stream of music because you don't like what she has said politically? It's a very valid point. Thank you for joining me. If you'd like to donate to the channel, $BigAngie 129 Cash App. All stickers, chats are welcome during this live. Thank you so much. We're going to go back in the book on some things that happened with the women. One woman lived with him by the name of Jocelyn Savage. She came around calling him a monster. What were her reasons for coming out, turning on him? Is it because the house of cards were falling? She realized there'll be no more money, no more gifts, no more living the high life, although they were allegedly sequestered in this tower box and skybox in Chicago. But one could say that was a choice. You realize you weren't the only woman. You were living in the house with another woman. You're still probably messing with other women, sleeping with other women, demeaning you all sexually, verbally. Why would you stay when you could just walk out the door and keep it moving? Go back to the life that you had or invent a new life. So one would have to question that. What was the motivation behind these women who were living with him in these apartments and homes when you knew he was allegedly violent? Those were the allegations. He was physically, verbally, sexually violent, introducing them to sex with other partners, also giving them venereal diseases. So why would you stay? We're going to hear from Ms. Savage, and we're going to ask ourselves, why did she stay? Why would you live with a man that had other women living in the house with them? Thank you so much for joining me. CBS Mornings is the source.
At a time until she learned her scripted lines word for word. She also claimed R. Kelly's live-in girlfriend, who defended him amid sexual misconduct allegations, is now apparently calling him a monster and is saying she is also a victim turned survivor. On the crowdfunding website Patreon, a woman claiming to be Joycelyn Savage describes the singer as controlling and abusive. She also says Kelly got her pregnant twice, and just a warning, some of what she has to say is quite disturbing. Do both of you all believe you're in love with him?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Of course.
This was Joycelyn Savage in March, when Gail sat down with her and R. Kelly's other live-in girlfriend, Azriel Clary, to speak about their relationship with the 52-year-old singer.
He's our full support and his full support. And all we need is each other. So.
But now, on the website Patreon, someone claiming to be Savage says Kelly is abusive and forced her to call him master or daddy. According to the Post, when she didn't, Kelly grabbed her and choked her until she blacked out. CBS News has not been able to independently verify it's Savage making the posts. Savage, now 24, says she met Kelly when she was 19 years old and pursuing a music career. For years, she publicly defended him, including in this interview with TMZ.
I'm in a happy place with my life, and I'm not being brainwashed or anything like that.
Savage now allegedly claims she was told what to say in that video and in others. She said a member of Kelly's staff starved her for days at a time until she learned her scripted lines word for word. She also claimed Kelly got her pregnant twice and she got an abortion both times. She wrote, "It's scary having your first child and aborting them because of some monster that kept me as a prisoner."
That's stupid. Use your common sense.
Kelly broadly denied allegations of abusing women in his interview with Gail.
How stupid would it be for me to, with my crazy past and what I've been through, right now I just think I need to be a monster and hold girls against their will, chain them up in my basement and don't let them eat.
The new accusations come as Kelly is in jail awaiting trial. He faces federal and state sex crimes charges, which include child pornography and allegations he recruited underage girls and women to have sex with him.
Joycelyn, if you do hear my message, please know that your mother loves you dearly.
Savage's family has begged her for several years to leave Kelly. This is what her father told Gail in March.
A father, love will never change for his daughter.
What do you all have to say to R. Kelly?
Really? He need to rot in jail.
Gerald Griggs is the Savage family attorney and says they are concerned by the apparent new posts.
And they are ready to do whatever it takes to get her in a safe, comfortable environment where she can reconnect with her family.
In a statement, R. Kelly's attorney, Stephen Greenberg, said it was not until the money ran out that Savage decided anything was wrong. Greenberg condemned her for seeking money, he says, to exploit her loving relationship with Kelly. Kelly has pleaded not guilty to all charges and is expected to go to trial in the spring, and that being that federal case first. But it's going to be interesting to see if Azriel Clary comes out with her version of what happened or what she says happened, and if Joycelyn Savage will cooperate with authorities if she has any information that will, build their cases. I mean, they're already pretty strong, but.
And we know you'll be on it. You've been honest.
Yeah, we have been.
CBS Mornings is the source, and as you know, Azriel thereafter flipped the script as well, turned on Robert Sylvester Kelly, became independent, bought a home, and also said the same. Used and abused by Robert Kelly. But I do agree with Robert's older attorney, Mr. Greenberg, that I do believe when the money ran out and they realized what was coming down, R. Kelly owed money on that said apartment. I don't think the lease was going to be renewed in that Chicago apartment that December. She realized this house of cards, they're falling. There's not going to be any money and any income. I need to save myself and do me. But then you have to ask yourselves, if the apartment had been renewed, the lease, no allegations coming from any judicial systems, would they have stayed with R. Kelly and continued this farce of a love affair between a man and two young girls? I found it baffling, that Gayle King interview. That was the most crazy interview I've ever seen. Famous person. Random people, yes. But famous people, I mean, you're looking like, come on, R. Kelly. Two women sharing a man, all type of nasty allegations coming out about him and other women, diseases, this and that, and you're sitting up here saying, yes, we're in love with him. Two women living in a house, and then you remember a few years ago when that tape got out of one of them streaming live in the apartment building, when they were packing up their stuff to try to get out of there, and they were fighting. It was the most atrocious thing I'd ever seen. The interview was one thing, but then when that video went viral of the girls fighting in that skybox, it was sad. And it just shows you this was never meant to be. Two women living with a grown man. Something was going to pop off and jump off. And I think with all the stories told by other women who were living with them in different houses and locations, it was never kosher. Robert Kelly and these young girls all living together in a house. Because I think most of us know that sister wives notion ain't never worked out. And I think you know that from watching reality TV. Thank you for joining me. CBS Mornings is the source. Let's go back in the Book of Life pertaining to what was asked on the questionnaire. I bet most of you never knew this. I just found this today and I thought this would be very interesting information to bring to the chat. Jurors in R. Kelly case asked about STDs. Lead attorney speaks out. This is content uploaded from 2 years ago when they were trying to prepare for trial to get a jury. There was a questionnaire where the defense asked a personal question, which is nobody's business. But we know why they asked, because if you had said yes and checked the box that you had received an STD at some point in your life, they probably would scratch you as a juror, because that would be one of the allegations brought up during trial, that Robert gave herpes to said women. Let's hear that content. Thank you for joining me.
Against Grammy-winning artist R. Kelly is expected to be the first of the 4 pending cases against him to go to trial. This week, the attorneys are creating a juror questionnaire, and one question clearly stands out. Have you, a family member, a close friend, or spouse or partner, ever had a sexually transmitted disease? It's a question the defense wants in. Prosecutors are objecting, saying the question, among other reasons, is, quote, unnecessarily intrusive. Mike Leonard represents Robert Kelly.
There's going to be a whole panoply of evidence presented by the state about Mr. Kelly, about his health condition, about whether he allegedly transmitted an STD to somebody else, whether they knew that he had an STD. So clearly, it's evidence that the government's going to rely upon in its case in chief. So it would make obvious sense to ask the jurors questions about their familiarity with it, whether they've experienced themselves, whether they've been a victim of that type of STD, et cetera, et cetera. So to us, it's a no-brainer. It's clearly relevant in light of the evidence that the government wants to put on in this case.
Do you think jurors will be honest with you?
Well, that's an interesting question. The good thing about a juror questionnaire is it's a piece of paper that you're not sitting there or standing up in front of a whole room of people in the voir dire where you have to be worried about that.
Kelly is accused of having sex with underage girls. The New York case alleges that he also gave a girl herpes without disclosing that he had the disease. In 2008, Kelly was found not guilty in a child pornography case. The latest charges surfaced following the Lifetime documentary series Surviving R. Kelly, which featured alleged victims' stories of manipulation and abuse.
I would give my life for my justice and any other woman you validated.
That's his ex-wife.
I will not go away. I will not be quiet.
R. Kelly has consistently denied any wrongdoing, saying any relationships were consensual and the girls were all of the age of consent. He lost his composure during a 2019 interview with Gayle King on CBS This Morning.
I'm fighting for my life. Yo, tell me what this.
Robert, right now you're obviously getting a one-sided take on R. Kelly. You're getting snippets of video that are produced and packaged in a way to make him the worst possible. And you got to remember, we're talking about allegations that in some instances are 20 to 25 years ago by persons who have already testified and or given statements under oath saying something that's absolutely contrary to what they're saying today.
And STD is not the only diseases that the defense team for R. Kelly is concerned with right now. They're also concerned about the coronavirus, and that as a basis to try to get him released on bail, because he hasn't been convicted of anything yet. He's getting ready for his trial, but still is presumed innocent. But here's some of the requests that were made today for bail, saying that there are at least 6 known and confirmed positive cases of COVID-19 amongst the population where Mr. Kelly is being detained. Then perhaps the best argument yet is not only is he on virtual lockdown, Mr. Kelly now gets 1 phone call per week. His attorneys cannot visit him. So if you got a trial coming up, everyone's in lockdown, you can't prepare, you can't visit your client. Will this trial actually happen, or does something else have to happen, like releasing R. Kelly so he can interact with his attorneys? Let's bring in Steve Greenberg, lead attorney for R. Kelly, joining us tonight. Great to see you, Steve.
How you doing,
let's start first with the COVID. Good. Before we get to STDs and all that, let's talk about COVID tonight. You can only speak once a week if you want to on the phone with your client.
This is older content from 2 years ago. Feel free to check out this information on my community board. I brought this information up because, there were allegations that he gave a woman or more herpes. And as I gave you information pertaining to the state of New York, it is a punishable crime as a misdemeanor. And you can go to jail for the said crime if found guilty and found liable, willingly and unwillingly passing the STD. Let's go out of the realm of that. Let's talk about other bangers besides chlamydia, herpes, HIV. I'd like to know, for the record, how many women who have slept with R. Kelly actually have the herpes virus? Because you have to do mathematics and logistics. If you were to put 30 women up on the bulletin board, and each has admitted to having sex with R. Kelly, and he also admits to having consensual sex with those said 30 women. If you have at least 5 or 6 on that bulletin board that has herpes, you can use mathematical thinking and logic. Possibly they all got it from Robert, or he got it from one of them and passed it on to the other women and men. Because you have to ask yourself the ultimate question: when was he diagnosed with the herpes virus? Now, you heard through trial and testimony that allegedly he didn't have it. Doctor said he didn't have it. But as I said, if you get a certain amount of women who are willing to admit that yes, they have the virus, all you have to do is use mathematical thinking and deduction. What are the odds of these different women who do not know each other and hadn't had sex with each other, but have had sex with Robert Kelly, all have that disease? And God forbid, HIV. And I've also wondered that as well. How many of the women that have slept with Robert Kelly have HIV? Because who's going to tell that? Admitting to having the herpes virus is one thing, and being ostracized publicly. But who's going to say, yeah, by the way, I'm also HIV positive? Because that's what I've been waiting on in all this news, and he said, she said, and allegations of abuse and sexual misdeeds and consensual sex and non-consensual, however you want to word it. Who actually has HIV? Because that would be the headliner. Because if we ever find out that Robert Kelly has HIV, all hell is going to break loose. Because now everybody who's had sex with any of these women are going to be wondering, do they have it? See, you all have to stay woke. You also have to think about the herpes virus as well. You think these women have not had sex with other men? You think they have not had unprotected sex? Because a few of the women have actually had children. One victim has a lot of children and is married. Then another one had a baby a few years ago. So, as I said, deduction. You can't conceive a child with a condom in place or birth control taken. So that means a woman went without using contraceptives. Do the math. So now those partners also possibly have herpes and any other disease. And HIV and herpes are the only two that can't be cured. So does Robert Kelly have HIV? Because he slept with too many women and men, and he would be very lucky not to have contracted HIV/AIDS, and the women and men as well. And imagine you having sex with children and infecting them with STD and or HIV/AIDS. Just a thought. Thank you all so much for joining me. That last commentary is by Court TV. I'm going to call one of my mods and interchange information at the same time. Let one of my mods weigh in because she's currently working right now, and we're going to get her opinion pertaining to this information. I don't even think I can maybe get her in. Let's see, may not be able to get on. Hold on 1 second. We'll see if we can get in. Having a hard time logging in. 1 second. This other device isn't acting good. It's not. Behaving. Thank you all so much for tuning in to this information pertaining to Robert Kelly. I think I'm in now. One second. Let's see. These apps are hell on wheels. Hello?
Hello, hello.
How are you?
I'm good, and yourself?
Woo! Trying to log in, I was like, good grief, this account's acting up. What do you have to say about the information I've played so far, ma'am? This is Kinsley Masters, my mod. Thank you for joining me, dear.
I think that when I first heard that he got 30 years, I was like, 30 years, that's it? But I can see where she gave him the 30 years, probably because she knows he's gonna, go to those other jurisdictions and then get additional time. He's never getting out.
Okay. Do you think that the 30 years is fair with the evidence and material? Did you hear his lawyer saying that this is old commentary and it's not fair? It should be about 10 years. It's not a RICO Act.
You can't go around and do the stuff that he did to the amount of women. This is just the women that have come forward, you know?
Right.
I was thinking he was going to get 50, 60, 70 years life.
Yeah.
But
as she said, 20, 25 is life for him. And yeah, it is life for him because he's in his mid-50s.
Yeah, he's 55, so
Okay.
he's never getting out.
Mm-hmm.
He's never going to come home. He did the crime, he's got to do the time.
Do you think this is payback? Do you think this is payback for way back?
Yeah, I mean, his crime started, a very long time ago.
Yeah, really before he was famous, for those that don't know.
Right.
He was,
his crimes had started forever ago.
Mm-hmm.
So, it just took them this long probably to really build a solid case because
yes.
it was so old perhaps.
Yes, the allegations, yes. Yeah.
That were probably scared to come forward.
Yes,
So it took extra time.
How do you feel about the information I played about the questionnaire? The defense wanted to ask the jurors, potential jurors at that time, if they had an STD or knew of somebody with an STD. So I felt like, why are you asking that? Nobody's going to admit that they got an STD. Nobody wants to admit that on a questionnaire, as they said in this commentary. It's just a piece of paper. So I felt like the defense asked that because they knew that that allegation was going to come up during trial, and if somebody had caught one, they might feel some type of way and would not show favor towards him as being someone that allegedly was spreading diseases.
Well, you know what? What does it matter if a juror ever had an STD?
Yeah, no, what I'm saying, I think the defense doesn't want to get, I think the defense didn't want to choose a juror that had it because that would be one of the allegations against him in the proceedings.
You know what? To me, if he has an STD or he has HIV/AIDS, he should be in a world of hurt right now. You don't go sleeping with people like that. Well, these innocent, what if there was young children? We really don't know the true age of all these people. Yeah. Abused. You go and you have this young person contract.
Yeah, that's what I was mentioning. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Imagine, that's what I was saying. A lot of people he slept with were children, and imagine giving them diseases and HIV. I won't doubt that he has it. I think it's very interesting that during this trial and information that's come out a year or so ago, they were arguing back and forth, people saying, no, he didn't have it. No, the doctor got it wrong. The doctor that testified, he was misinformed. He's lying. My thing is, why would a doctor lie about you having a venereal disease? That doesn't make any sense. They're already repeating your personal business. I can't see a doctor lying about that.
These people need to know if he does have any of this stuff or had it.
You should want to know, exactly. You should want to know. And I'm telling you what I just said. Put 30 women up on the board that say they had sex with him. He agrees he had sex with them. How many actually have that herpes, let's say? What would be the odds? You see where I'm going? What would be the odds, especially in the time frame?
He has to. There's no way that man don't have something or have something.
And then you got to remember, this is a person that can't read or write. 9 times out of 10, never went to a doctor, never took care of himself. You think as you said, you think he didn't have something. He doesn't strike me as the type of person that would go to a doctor, because if you're not even willing to learn how to read and write, balance a checkbook, you're not the same person that would go to the health department or a doctor when you're having problems. Now, allegedly, the doctor specified he did come to him with some issues, boy issues, man issues. And I got a funky feeling you went to him because something was going on downtown. And it was said that he's very nasty down there in the genital area, if you get my drift. That he has a very distinctive odor. And that's possibly from bad hygiene plus having venereal diseases, plural, and being untreated.
Them venereal diseases, if they go untreated, your body can become infected, depending on what type of disease you have. He looks dirty. Look at him. He looks filthy.
Well, I was thinking about that when I was looking at him in the orange jumpsuit the past couple of years. And, his face is really dark. And I just thought he's falling apart, hair thinning. I noticed that in the video clip today. He's just a fine mess. Shell of a mess.
I want to know how he's paying for this voice.
I'd like to know that as well, because allegedly they said he didn't have any money. So let's go hear about the music. Do you think they live streaming sources should stop playing his music. And also, it has been known that when people go to trial and convicted of certain crimes, the judge will render them not to get any royalties or any type of payment from whatever they do, or book signings or book deals. Or how do you feel about that? The music and him not making any money from here on out.
Well, you know, not just him, but you know, a lot of rappers.
Yeah, in general.
Or actors, actresses, what have you. You know, you go out and you commit these horrific crimes, let's say, you know, SA or, you know, any of that type of stuff, right? And you go and you get a slap on the wrist, or you do a little bit of time and you get out and you make some more music.
Yeah.
What have they really learned? Nothing.
Nothing.
Because they're still making money.
Yeah, they're still
and
making money.
Until the legal system cuts them off from being able to receive any royalties, they're never going to stop.
Right. And he's had a long, as he said to Gail, 30 years of my life. And let's talk about the 30 years. It has been said that R. Kelly would hang outside of Hyde Park High School in Chicago, which is right in the vicinity of a neighborhood that I grew up in Chicago, or lived in briefly on the south side of Chicago, that he would hang outside the school seeking young girls. Now, this is before he became famous. So the propensity has always been there. He was a young man at that time, you know, dropped out of school, didn't finish, and then gravitated back to his old stomping grounds, hanging outside of schools. So the propensity was always there. He had an attraction for young girls day one. He was a predator, exactly.
That goes and sits outside of a school.
Sit outside of school.
Young people is a predator.
That has been said by many Chicagoans, saying he had been doing this before he was R. Kelly. People said they would see him hanging outside the school. So one could say, well, you're grown. You're allegedly above 18. Why are you hanging outside of a high school? What are you doing out there? What are you looking for out there? He was hunting. He was hunting. Yeah, bringing them back. Hey, come with me, ride with me, come back to my apartment. At that time, I think he had an apartment, and he was just getting, you know, started in the music business, and you know, not famous yet, but people probably heard his name, and it's just very sad to hear this man hanging outside of school or picking up young girls wherever, and down the road. He's known to do this. As that one girl said, he met me at a mall in Florida. That was one of his hunting grounds. The malls, backstage, in the concerts. He knew what he was doing, and he had help. So that's where the conspiracy comes in. He had help because he can't read or write. If you can't read, you're going to need some kind of help. How you going to read a number? You don't know how to read a phone number. You can't know how to read writings. Somebody have to read it to you. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, because I was thinking that myself. I was thinking, how did you go and get all these women?
He had help.
You had to have
He used them. He used his entourage, people who work with him, to give out the phone number, his number, for them to reach him, and the rest is history. They booked the flights. They booked the flights, the travel plans. R. Kelly did not do any of that.
No, he has people on the payroll to do it for him.
Exactly.
So, you know, it's...
But you hear his lawyer denying all that. There was no entourage. There's no conspiracy.
Oh, right. Right. You know, he had people on the lookout. He had a watchdog. You know, I think when
and they even threatened some of the girls. One of the girls, they threatened her family, and they were riding outside one of the girls' houses. The one that's come forward to say he gave her STD. They threatened her family. They, I think, set a car on fire. These people were devious, and R. Kelly is devious because he had them know what they were doing, because he was the one that orchestrated. I mean, this was to get her to not talk. But she has stayed adamant, and she has publicly spoken.
Well, you know, I think during that, you know, the special on TV, The Surviving.
Yeah, R. Kelly.
Whatever it was called. That one part where those husband and wife parents would go from city to city wherever, you know, their lead would take them.
Yeah.
And they would sit outside of his apartment apartment.
Jocelyn. That was Jocelyn's parents, I believe, from Atlanta.
I mean, and he would yell or have his people yell and
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
from the windows.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't understand why. I mean, I get why it probably took so long, because maybe they felt like they didn't have enough evidence. But man, he's been doing this for a long time.
Yeah. And see, the issue with that is Jocelyn was, I think, 19 when she met him, so she was legally grown. That was the problem. Azriel was, I think, 17. So by law, she was underage. He didn't have any business taking up with Azriel. But Jocelyn was like 19 years old in college. And next thing you know, she meets him, trying to sing, blah, blah, blah. One thing leads to another. And next thing you know, she's disappeared. She's left college. She's traveling and in Chicago living with this man. And there's nothing you can do because she's grown.
Yeah, she's grown. But you know what? I look back at myself, being 18, and my parents were like, where are you going? You need to be home at a certain time.
Yes.
Like, we were on, somewhat of a leash.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
And we were, my sister and I were, afraid of the repercussion. We've never been in trouble.
Yeah. The issue with Azriel is odd, because if she was underage and was running off with him in the city, down in Florida at the time, and meeting him at the hotel and this and that, when she had her first interaction with him, was in a hotel, I believe, in Florida. My thing is, at some point, if she ran off under the age of 18, why didn't you file a missing persons report? See, that's one thing that's missing from the story too. And then somebody in the chat says about the parents and administrators' responsibility. If your child is underage and not coming home, period, why aren't you filing a missing persons report?
Oh, I would.
Yeah.
I'd be calling, moving mountains. You're calling whoever you got to call to find your child.
Yeah. And sending your child off to go be with R. Kelly, one of the parents did that. That was dangerous because that was the start of an issue. You're not there to see what's going on. So if this person says, I need you to fly to Chicago to audition, to let me hear your child sing, however it goes, you should be the one going with your child. You don't let him say, well, I've got somebody that's going to watch over your child while they're here. That's not good enough. You should be on a plane, train, bus, car with your child. See, I didn't condone that. Agree with letting one of the girls go up there with him. Well, that's all he wanted, was the child to be out of the jurisdiction of your locale, so he could do what he want and bait her and, reel her in.
And then I was thinking of the one that, that we're talking about where the parents, never filed a missing person. I wonder, was he in the beginning paying the parents?
I don't know. There were allegations that they were paid, but, a lot of the parents have denied receiving any payment from R. Kelly.
I have a feeling they were getting something from him.
Okay, so you think that he was paying the parents money?
Oh, of course.
Okay, so then that goes to you're selling your child then. You're selling your child to try to get a record deal or get in cahoots with a famous person, but all along, he never did any of that. None of these people have cut any record deals with him or any music. Nothing. See, that's the gist of the story. Nobody, any of those women, Azriel, Jocelyn, whomever else, that young woman that spoke, was 45 years old, spoke. Nobody had got a record deal or any type of nothing in the music industry. All that was just to bait them in, to get them alone, to make them think he's interested. Because a lot of people said Miss Jocelyn couldn't even sing, actually. Azriel has a nice voice, but not Jocelyn. So even the one that could actually sing, he did nothing for them musically. He did nothing for them because that wasn't his intention. That's why he's a sadist. He had no intention of helping anyone musically. He only worked with people who are already in the game and already made a name for themselves. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. And his sister, if she in fact did, do this to her brother.
Yeah, she was a child. She was a child then herself.
I don't understand that.
You will, but you have to know that she was touched by somebody, either by a friend or family friend or a relative as well.
Yeah, she had to have been.
Because they had said something about R. Kelly's mother was abused by her father or stepfather, allegedly. So it goes back even to his mother when she was young, being abused as well, allegedly.
It's all disgusting.
It is disgusting. Because somebody had to teach that daughter felonious behavior for her to be molesting her own brother. Somebody was touching the sister. I believe that. I believe somebody was touching the sister and she was acting it out on her brothers.
You know, and I'm weird like this, you know, I listen to things on YouTube and then I go back and I ask my kids, you know, their opinions or whatever. And I asked my boys, I think it was yesterday, I said, have you either, you know, any of you ever wanted to experiment with each other?
Oh my God.
You know, like, have you ever like wanted to, you know, touch or, you know, any of that? And they're like, God, no.
Yeah.
You know?
But do you really think one of your children would admit they wanted to touch their other brother?
I think so. Out of the context that like we were talking about the whole R. Kelly thing, you know, like, is that something that like kids? I kind of put it out there. Is that something kids do? Is like want to experiment?
Well, you know, children do touch each other. Nobody can sit here and say they've never heard of children touching each other because they have. They're curious. But it's only going to be worse if they are engaging with grown people and doing things with grown people. Then eventually, common sense should tell you they're going to act that out. They're going to act that out. Why would they not act that out?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, if they're being touched by somebody else,
yes,
you know, they're going to want to know what it's like to touch somebody.
And then if they're touched by another child consistently, they're going to possibly act it out with that child and another child.
Dear God.
Because it happens all the time. People don't talk about it, but you know it happens all the time.
No, oh yeah, definitely it does. It happens more often than we think it does.
Let's talk about a plea. 30 years, they want to appeal. As she said, 30 years is a life sentence. Why would he not just go on and plea out in Minnesota and Chicago and be done with it and let the charges run concurrently to the 30 years he's getting here and be done with it? Huh?
It's a waste of money.
It's a waste of money. Yes, it is. So I don't know why his lawyers wouldn't tell him that. You're not a spring chicken. You're not 19 years old being accused of this crime and getting 30 years. So why you want to go from city to city and then we have to appeal those convictions? Let's say he's found guilty in Chicago. So you're going to do that, appeal that as well. Why would you want to keep spending your life going from jail to, you understand what I'm saying? Prison to prison, courtroom to courtroom. People jumping up saying you did this, because in Chicago, I believe it's going to be pornography charges. So my thing is, why would you want to live your life like this? I just don't understand why someone wouldn't tell him, just plead it out. Just plead it out.
That's why I'm thinking there's got to be plenty of money somewhere because she's wanting to stay on the payroll. Because he's going to be found guilty.
Okay, so you do believe he's going to be found guilty in Chicago?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
I do.
So why doesn't he say to himself, I'm old, I'm getting tired, I'm having health problems, I'm not getting out of here no time soon, let me plea out to those other cities and jurisdictions and put an end to this so I could try to savor some bit of a life?
He has no moral compass.
So you believe this. So when she says he felt pain for the victims, as I was saying earlier in my commentary, how can you feel something when you don't admit that you did anything? So you're saying, I feel sorry that you feel bad, but I didn't do anything to you.
Well, that's where him not having any common sense comes in. He's a narcissist.
Yes.
He thinks he's done nothing wrong to anybody.
Exactly.
There's no way that man has any feelings.
Well, she said he felt pain. She said he felt pain. He's a human being. He felt pain. So my thing is, well, you can't have one without the other. How is it he's going to feel pain, that they're in pain, when he's acknowledging he hasn't done anything to them, that all the sex was consensual? So all these people are bringing allegations. You're not even denying that you haven't had sex with him. It's just that you didn't do nothing to him wrong.
And that's what I was going to say. Okay, so you're saying that you're feeling pain, you're feeling hurt for these victims, but you're telling me in another sense that you don't know.
I didn't do
what's wrong,
anything. That I didn't do anything.
So you're thinking it's okay that you have these women locked up in your home and we're threatening them and beating them and, you know, essaying them?
Yeah.
No, I don't buy it. Dumb.
I think it's interesting. His appetite for sex is great. His appetite for children is great, and both sexes. Let's not leave that out. He's also a bisexual man. The fact that he likes introducing sexual partners with each other is very interesting. I mean, he's just all around just nasty.
He's got
R.
a
Kelly's
very
nasty.
sick obsession.
Yes, he does.
For sex.
Yes, and he got that young because one of the teachers testified that he had did something during school hours that she would never repeat what it was. And I thought that was very interesting, this older woman not wanting to say what he did. But she said, I knew then that he was sick. So I thought, my God, what did he do?
Something very vile.
Yeah, very vile.
I wonder if it was, you know.
Maybe he made a pass at the teacher.
Maybe, yeah. Maybe it was to another student and she walked in. Maybe it was to an animal. You never know. He's ill. He's very mentally disturbed.
But you have men like this, and I'm sure women as well, who do. They do have a very high sexual appetite. Thank you, Nubian. Thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you, sweetheart. They have this high appetite for sex, that they have this need that they have to have sex. They need different ways of having sex. They need an extra partner engaging in sex. Also trying men and tools and all type of things, and you're saying to yourself, my goodness, why isn't one is not enough? I mean, it's one thing to be wanting sex every day all the time with one. Then you want different acts and different ways of doing sex. Now you want to bring in another partner into sex. Now you want to bring in the same sex as yourself into the sex. It's just like you're just going all outside of the universe. You have to admit there's something wrong. And there's nothing wrong with having wanting to do things a different way sexually, but you don't know when to stop. You understand what I'm saying? You're going from A to Z, all in a matter of seconds.
Well, I'll tell you. I'm going to tell you something. It's probably going to blow your mind right now. When
I'm scared to listen.
When I was in I was going through college, and then I did it for a long time. I knew somebody that owned a very large, I'm just going to call it sensual massage business.
Okay.
And I was the booker, right?
Okay.
I did all the scheduling.
So you work inside of the salon?
It wasn't an actual salon.
Okay.
There was the madam owned multiple homes.
Oh, I see. So she would send the women out to the men's homes.
No, they would come to her homes. And
wait, slow down. So she would have the women meet the men at her house?
No. So the madam she owned multiple properties, right? And these were like homes, condos, single family homes.
That were lived in?
They looked like they were lived in. Like it would look like my home that you just like walked in.
Staged, you mean? Staged.
Decorated, everything. And each home had, ladies that, were there working, and after the men would, go through the whole verification process, then you were given an address after you reached a certain destination. These
What do you mean destination?
So like let's just say you were going to go to one of the locations that
to the house.
San Francisco, let's say, right? And I would say when you get to 5th Street in Tehama, you need to call me back.
Okay.
So when they reach the destination at 5th Street in Tehama, then that's when they would get the actual address.
I see what you're saying. They didn't get the actual address immediately in the conversation.
Right.
Okay, so let me ask you this. When they get to the house, who's opening the door, Kinsley?
The girls.
So it'd be one girl there?
No, not always. So there was about 40 ladies, 40 females. And this is, I'm not saying this is like your average unemployed, uneducated ladies. These are women.
And this is a time when you all weren't using cell phones?
Yeah, we had cell phones. Yeah.
Okay, so you're not that old then?
I'm in my mid-40s.
Okay.
So they would, these are women that were
Lord have mercy.
teachers, CEOs, doctors. These are women that wanted the extra income because it was that good.
Okay.
So what I'm getting at is the shit that I've seen that these men would want. Like, there was a whole menu, right? Like, we had a whole menu that these men could say before the appointment was ever scheduled. They could either choose off of the menu or they could say, does any of your ladies do, this or
Okay,
that?
so you all had specifications of what the women look like and what they do and don't do. Is that right?
Oh, yeah. This was a full-on I call it an organization because it was website, it was ads, it was like a full-on.
So let me ask you this. So how did you come about to get this position, ma'am? Jesus.
So I was going to school, and this is like right when Craigslist had come out.
Okay, so you found this on a Craigslist, this ad for a job.
As like under administration, right?
Okay.
And so I'm like, okay, and I told my husband, because I was married then. And so I told my husband, I'm like, okay, well, I got an interview, and like we didn't think anything of it.
So how old were you at the time while you're going to school and married?
I was 20, I think.
You were married at 20 years old?
Yeah, I got married at 21.
Wow.
So
did you have children at the time?
I had just had my oldest. Because my oldest was born in 2000. So yeah, I just had my oldest.
Good Lord.
And so I did not want to go to San Francisco by myself because I didn't know the city really well. And my husband is from California. So he's like, okay, we'll go. We went and I met her at a restaurant, a little like outside.
So how far was this meeting from where you actually lived?
It's like 45 minutes.
So how are you doing this job? I don't understand. You're doing it virtually on a computer? Is that how you're doing this?
Yeah, I was at my home.
I see. Okay.
But
Ooh,
what
Lord.
I'm getting at is these men, the shit that they would ask for, some of these men, like, they're vile. Some of these are very devious, beyond craving sex.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah.
Wanting to be beat up.
Yeah, I know.
Multiple women.
Yeah.
My wife doesn't know this, but I like to have, anal.
Yeah.
Just bizarre stuff.
Yeah.
That I would sit in that, and one of them, and I'll never forget him ever. A lot of these men were very high powered because her business only catered to men that made six figures.
Okay.
And I'm talking men that were, played in the NFL, baseball, hockey, basketball, all the way up to owners of the league.
Okay.
All of these different teams. And, you sit back and this one guy, and I'll never forget him. He was a high-powered exec at one of the search engines is what I'm going to say.
Okay.
One of the search engines. And his wife had no idea, but he really enjoyed multiple men.
Wow.
And he wanted to bring multiple men in and not just engage in sexual activity. I'm talking raunchy, vile, abusive type of.
So that was his preference. You mean he solicited you all for that?
Yes.
And what was the response from your owner or whatever?
Well, he had been a client of theirs where it just started out as in like a happy ending massage.
Okay, with women.
Yeah, with women.
So he went from women to now wanting men,
Correct. I think he always craved men.
but was too scared to ask in the beginning.
Yeah. And I'm talking, this man was a client for like 15 years.
Okay.
A very long time.
Do you know if he was married or not?
Yeah, he was married for a very long time. He's still married.
Lord have
They were-
mercy. So that's the scary part about being with people. You don't know who they are and what they crave and desire. And it's sad that you have to find out in a very undignified manner.
I'm talking some of the most high-powered people, you know, owners of, you know, Google and this. Now I'm just hypothetically saying Google.
Yeah.
But
Yes, please say hypothetical.
you know, I'm just using that as like a reference, like that those types of major companies that you know we're thinking that they're one way. You
Yeah, I
know,
know what you're saying.
We see them on TV and this and that, and they're
Yeah.
really not.
Well, that's the whole point of life is that you don't know people. You don't know the desires of a person's heart. You don't know the spirit of a person. All you know is what people represent to you at that time. So just like when you see famous people, you don't know them. You don't know the guy at the grocery store. You don't know anybody until you hear something salacious about them. And it's up to you to decide if you believe the allegations or the charges. That's just the way the world is. And day for day, we hear the most heinous things about man and woman and child too. And it's up to you if you decide if you believe the allegations. And it's sad, sickening, a lot that these people are guilty of these things, not just allegations. There's proof, there's video, and now these people are so sick they film things. So like with R. Kelly, for him to be so dumb as they want to portray him, he knew how to work a camera back in the early 2000s to film women. And he also knew how to probably set up an iPad to film also the interactions in the bedroom. So he wasn't that dumb. Because, you know, setting up the camera was probably easier, and setting up a iPad or something was easier than actually reading information on a piece of paper. But he fully well knew the things he were doing. And I believe a lot of the allegations of him being physically, verbally abusive, you know, all that calling him daddy and, you know, crawling across the floor and all this stuff about urination on the women and all that to me don't have nothing to do with what happened to you as a child. You have chosen to just be the sinister, and that's just how I feel about R. Kelly.
Yeah, he's a vulgar, vile.
Oh, he's very vulgar. He's very vulgar.
And he enjoyed.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm glad you said that. I do believe he enjoyed all his preferences, his sexual preferences of being with men, women, using body fluids, fecal matter, urine. He enjoyed all of that. And sadly, these women didn't run the first time they got a glimpse of things he enjoyed doing and they didn't want to participate. Your ass should have ran like hell. Because I would have told him, look, I'm not into no fecal matter, urine. I know I don't want to sleep with him. I don't want to sleep with her. Just told him I'm not into that. And then if he's still acting like he want to get hyped, whatever, then you grab your undies, pocketbook, whatever, and I'll tell it on out of that. If you were able to leave. You understand what I'm saying? I wouldn't have stayed. Wouldn't have stayed.
3 o'clock. Sorry about that. I was talking to my
No, that's fine.
I get where these women were. They were probably sold a dream, you know.
Well, and I think that's the reason why a lot of women stay with men in general, not just because they're famous. You have to count all the men who have women up under their sleeve and they're not famous. And they're doing things for these men that they really don't like to do, sexually, verbally, the verbal abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, adding extra partners and tools and this and that, whatever. Women do it all the time. Stay in relationships, courtships with men, doing things they don't want to do, sexually, crimes, all type of things. So it really don't even have anything to do with just because somebody's famous. Women do things for men every day, and the men are not famous. And the men are not famous. Let's just get that out off, you know, out in the air. Women succumb to all type of crazy nonsense dealing with men, utter foolishness, illegal activity, all that for men. And the men are not R. Kelly. They're not Weinstein, Bill Cosby. They're not. They're regular guys.
Yeah, that just no.
Because you've heard of all these crimes of men raping women, bringing in another woman, another partner, and you've heard the women tell down the road, I didn't like that. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be with another woman. I didn't want to have this type of sex with him or whatever it was. But I did it because I love him, or he forced me to do it. And they're not R. Kelly. They're not Bill Cosby. They're not famous. They're not an athlete. They're not some powerful mogul. They're just a regular guy who's just laid it on thick. You understand what I mean? The God complex, the narcissist. If you love me, you'll do this. Nobody will know.
Good groomers.
Yes, good groomers. Perfectly
That's
put.
all they are.
Good groomers.
And
Exactly.
I often wonder, are these women are they, a lot of them broken? Did they have mommy issues, daddy issues?
Well, the average person has those issues. The average woman or man is insecure, has been physically abused, verbally abused, not secure with their bodies.
I personally, I am very, how do I want to say it? I was always raised to be very vocal, right? Like in our household, our parents always told us, don't you ever be afraid if somebody ever hurts you or touches you inappropriately or says anything inappropriate like that of the sexual nature.
Yeah.
You come to us. It doesn't matter what they tell you. You know what I mean? We're your parents, and we will get to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
And growing up and into adulthood and being a wife and being a mother, I'm a handful for my husband.
Yeah, I'm sure. You get crunk in the comments, so I know you're a handful with your husband.
I am a handful, and I don't mean it in like a crazy way, but I am very vocal.
Hello, DeVille. Hi, darling. Thank you for joining me.
I have that personality where I'm not going to let anybody ever abuse me verbally or emotionally or do that to my, anybody do that to
Well,
me.
let's talk about the bisexuality that has been alleged by Robert Kelly. How do you feel about the allegations that his brother had told the documentary that Robert made a pass at him and they were grown? He had brought in a man, I think his name is Bubba, what it was called by one of the girls, introduced her, he baited her in that, had her come in a room, had her sit down, Bubba comes in, Bubba gets between his legs and performs oral sex. He did that to see what her reaction would be. I believe that happened. Picking up young boys from the McDonald's, that was one of the witnesses in the trial. One of the boys who's now grown, worked at a fast food restaurant, was a friend of a friend. How do you feel about him soliciting young boys and men?
That's vile. He's a vile human being.
Mm-hmm.
This man thought, or he did, got his cake and ate it too.
Yeah, a whole lot of cake. a whole lot of cake. Just a whole lot of cake, honey.
Cake from everybody.
From everybody. I think that would be the most disappointing allegation pertaining to Robert Kelly to the average fan, is that it's bad enough these people are saying these nasty things about you, whether I believe them or not. But to hear that he liked men and boys, I think that would be very devastating to most women and guy fans.
Yeah, you would have thought.
Because you'd have never thought this guy would want the company of a boy or a man.
Yeah, that he was into that.
Yeah.
Of the male.
Yeah. I just can't imagine a young girl fascinated with this musician, and then he pulls me into a room And then I don't know what's getting ready to happen. I'm just sitting there, and then in walks a guy, and I'm looking like, what the hell's getting ready to happen here? Okay, what's going on? And to watch a man get between another man's legs. I mean, when she describes it,
all I could do was laugh.
when she describes it, it's like you're in an alternate universe, because in your mind you're saying, what in the hell am I listening to? And so now you're trying to imagine the act itself, which you don't want to. You're trying to imagine that girl right there, a young girl, watching this guy who's famous let another man perform oral sex on her. And I know he did that to get a reaction, to let her know, I'm not going to tell you that I like men. I'm going to show you I like men. Now, what you got to say about that? He did that to Bader. That was grooming right there. I'm not going to tell you I like men, but I'm going to show you, and I want to get a reaction out of you. And you see, eventually, she still stayed and still kept coming to his house, coming and going out to the suburbs to his house, to his mansion. Her mama ain't giving a damn about where she's going. There are no words to describe that scenario. None.
No, he has been sick.
A long time.
Him being sick as in like not being sexually fulfilled.
Right. Because I don't think he could be sexually fulfilled. Let's make that point. I don't think Robert Kelly could ever be sexually fulfilled.
No, there's no possible way that he could ever be satisfied from a male or a female.
No.
Because he has something else mentally wrong with him.
Okay, Nubian, stop it. Jesus. Oh. No, I don't think he could be satisfied. Nubian, I'm gonna spank you. I don't think he can be satisfied. I don't think. And that's what's scary, because that's when the mind has become deviant, when you can't be sexually satisfied. That no matter what you ask the person to do, no matter what your expectations are, that you're still not satisfied even after engaging in the act. You're still wanting more. Now you're having to go get devices. Now you're having to go get another lady. Now you have to go get a guy. God forbid you want to get an animal. It's like, how far out are you going to go into space with this? You understand what I'm saying? These desires.
Yeah, people like him are going to go way beyond a human being.
Yeah, because when you start entering in a man, a woman, devices, body fluids, you're at the point of no return. Urinating on someone, why would you want to urinate on another human being? For what reason? And defecation, that's, Lord.
Let me tell you.
This is ridiculous.
There are men, I know from doing that job, there are men that pay, it's about $650 to have a woman pee on you.
Okay.
And it's about $1,000 to have a female do, a bowel movement on you.
And how can you just even defecate or urinate on somebody if you ain't got to go? I mean, this is crazy. Oh man, come on.
I heard that for the very first time,
It's ridiculous.
and I was younger.
No way.
Right?
No way.
I almost hit the floor. Let me put you on mute real quick because I have to tell my son some instructions. Give me 1 second.
Go ahead. I'm going to come off. I'm going to play something, then I'm going to put you back on. She's talking private, so I'll come out of that for a minute. Thank you all for joining me. If you'd like to donate to the channel, $McGanty129 Cash App. I'm going to play a little more commentary pertaining to Robert Kelly. As most of you know, he's been sentenced to 30 years in New York. His lawyer claims that the charge is not equivalent to the sentence. She was hoping for at least 10 years, but as you see, he's gotten 30 years. So why will he not just plea out the cases in Chicago and Minnesota? Now, Chicago is his home. Will the people in Chicago favor him once again as they did in the 2008 trial? Because they let him walk in that trial, and in that trial, Robert was guilty. He had sex with that child. And if anybody had ever seen the video of that child, in that video with other women as well, that was a child that Robert engaged in sexual relations in that video. Yes, that was a child. It was not a grown woman. And he walked because allegedly he paid her family off for her not to testify. Very baffling information. And it's sad that money could lead a person to say, well, I'm going to forfeit the information of assault, rape of a child, all for the almighty dollar. Because how do you sleep at night knowing you took money, knowing this man had sex with your child? So you sold your child for the almighty dollar. It wasn't worth it. How could it possibly be worth it? We talked in this commentary in this live pertaining to music. Should the music stop streaming? Should he stop getting payment for his music? Any book deals, any type of royalties of any kind, music, movies, whatever. Because a lot of times judges will render that in a sentence that you cannot profit, period. So should that have also been implemented in his sentence? That he can't gain any money from music royalties or any type of streaming devices. I also brought you information from Court TV about jurors initially being asked on a questionnaire if they've ever had an STD. This is what the defense's question. And I know that they asked that question because they felt like if you had contracted a venereal disease, you possibly wouldn't show favor for their clients in the trial. You would probably feel some type of way negatively because you would relive what was done to you and you would want possible revenge against the said clients. I brought you that commentary by Court TV. We're going to play you a little information from R. Kelly's ex-wife who tells her story of their marriage. And she says people have no idea. ABC News is the source. Thank you for joining me.
Bluetooth connected.
R. Kelly, widely regarded as the king of R&B, known for songs like Ignition. But his ex-wife, Drea Kelly, says lurking behind that Playboy image, there's a more sinister persona.
Here I am, his principal dancer, choreographer, on stage, right next to him. If people have no idea that this man just beat me on the bus. People have no idea of the bruises I'm hiding.
Drea claims she was a victim herself of emotional, physical, and sexual abuse at the hands of Robert Kelly.
Did you ever fear for your life? Yes. You thought he might kill you? Yeah. Your kids? No. But me, definitely.
Their tumultuous relationship initially began with a love for his music.
The Thorn video, there's a part in there where I'm dressed as a geisha. This is around the time The Matrix came out. So I put The Matrix move in the video.
There she is, front and center, his wife of 13 years and mother to his 3 children.
Why did you decide now? Summer of 2017 hits. All these allegations start coming out again. And I'm like, God, I don't think I can take this one.
We're going to begin this half hour with those disturbing allegations against R. Kelly.
He texted R. Kelly to let my daughter free.
Those claims stem from a BuzzFeed article detailing allegations from 2 parents who say their daughter was being held against her will by Kelly. The article also alleges that 6 women live in properties rented by Kelly in Chicago and Atlanta suburbs, and that he controls every aspect of their lives. Charges that Kelly and several of the women, including the daughter of the concerned parents, have denied. Those allegations have sparked a movement. Celebrities like John Legend and Viola Davis joining the call to #MuteRKelly, demanding that people stop playing and promoting his music. Apple Music removed him from their featured playlists. And after months of silence, R. Kelly released this 19-minute song called I Admit.
I'm so falsely accused. Tell me, how can you judge when you never walked in my shoes?
What do you make of his song, I Admit? That was the dumbest thing he's ever done. Because you didn't admit anything. That was the classic narcissistic response.
The pair first met more than 20 years ago in their mutual hometown of Chicago. R. Kelly, at the time 27 years old, had just skyrocketed to #1 with his breakout hit, Bump and Grind.
to embark on his first tour as a solo performer and was auditioning backup dancers.
I remember I danced the paint off the walls. They started clapping and he was like, you got the job.
Just 19 years old, it was her dream gig. Andrea says she would quickly rise from backup to principal dancer and eventually choreographer. Shortly thereafter, she says her then boss would seek a more intimate relationship.
I do remember when he said he fell in love. He said, I was sitting on the back of the tour bus reading the Bible. He said, and you remind me of my mama.
At this point, you hadn't seen any kind of indication that there may be any kind of violence or rudeness.
No, but what I did see is a man who's very controlling.
R. Kelly would continue to climb the Billboard charts, soon becoming a household name with the release of this crossover mega hit.
I believe I can fly. After I Believe I Could Fly, we were married, but at that point I had seen him go from just an all-black audience knowing who he was to now you're doing Space Jam, you're getting Grammy nods, winning Grammys.
R. Kelly, I Believe I Could Fly.
Oh, wow.
At a certain point, your marriage started going down. When was that point?
When I was pregnant with my first child. He locked me in the bathroom and I slept in the bathtub.
Outwardly, Kelly was the portrait of a doting father, cradling his baby girl Joanne in Celine Dion's I'm Your Angel. And even though they would go on to have 2 more children, Drea says their marriage was crumbling. And then in 2002,
R. Kelly was charged today with 21 counts of child pornography.
a tape emerges, purportedly showing R. Kelly engaged in sexual acts with a minor.
When the videos surfaced and the allegations surfaced of the child pornography charges, did you believe it?
No, I'm thinking to myself, that's impossible. But again, he kept me very sheltered.
Did some part of you have a nagging suspicion?
I'm too busy dealing with my own abuse.
Around this time, R. Kelly would sit down for an interview with ABC News.
People need to understand that R. Kelly is not who they think, but it's who I know. You know, I'm not perfect.
He would face trial for multiple charges of child pornography and be acquitted on all counts. But at home, Drea says her husband grew more controlling and easily angered.
There's no let's talk about it like a regular couple, you know? No, it's his way or the highway, period.
It was a seemingly ordinary scenario that Drea claims led to her being attacked, restrained, and ultimately hogtied by Kelly.
And he took the rope tight and he tied my arms behind my back. And then he took my leg and he tied my legs and my hands and arms together. And I just remember laying on the side of the bed crying, like, let me go, just untie me, let me go. And he fell asleep with me on the side of the bed like an animal.
In 2005, you filed this order of protection, but then a few weeks later, you withdraw it. Why did you withdraw it?
Fear. He's a powerful man. At this time, he's at the top of his game. So now I get this order of protection and it dawns on you, this is not bulletproof.
Eventually, she says a series of altercations while on vacation in Miami led to her breaking point when she almost tried to end her life.
What happened there? What kept you?
First, God put my kids. So I remember I climbed out on the balcony and I looked down and it was like God allowed me to see my body was laying in blood. And I prayed, God, okay, I need an answer and I need it now. And he told me to get my laptop of all things and type in domestic violence. I take the survey and of the 17 things on the list, Robert had already done 15.
Drea says she was determined to leave, fleeing with her 3 children to her father's home. In 2006, she filed for divorce.
Have you thought about changing your last name?
No.
You don't mind the association still with being a Kelly?
Well, when people say association, that's like a club or fraternity or whatever. I paid for my name in blood, sweat, and tears. Literally. Nobody knows what it was like to be Drea Kelly. Drea Kelly is strong. Drea Kelly is a survivor. Drea Kelly made it away from Robert Kelly.
In response to the allegations made by Drea, R. Kelly's manager told ABC News they have
No comment.
When was the last time you did have contact with him? Oh, what? So long ago, I can't even remember.
Drea is now a full-time mom. Her 3 children, Joanne, Jai, and Robert, all live close by, just outside of Los Angeles.
That is my world. I call them my eggs. If you go on any of my social media, everybody sees hashtag my eggs.
Her eggs are now all grown up, from 16 to 21 years old. They are well aware about the headlines about their dad and say his past has sometimes led to them being bullied at school.
How would you handle it when people might say something nasty to you?
I know that it doesn't have anything to do with me.
Do you all have any contact at all with your dad?
No.
And it's been a long time. Any message for dad at all?
Hi. Oh my God.
Well, what now? What's next for you?
Everything.
Now to be able to fearlessly tell my story and to shout it from the mountaintops. Wow, words can't even describe that.
At the end of the day, we don't have to keep talking about the storm. It's about how you come out of it.
Drea has now become an advocate for victims of domestic abuse.
The healing process is never ending. And I think that's the misconception that people think that, how did you heal from it? I'm healing every day.
But what have you learned about yourself through all of this? What I have learned is that I'm a vessel. I know now that I'm being used for something greater than me.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel.
All right, everybody. ABC News is the source. Let's chop up what Drea had to say. Woo! There was a time when she was to be interviewed for The View, and there was some negative commentary pertaining to her speaking, I guess maybe on a social media platform, about doing that interview. She was giggling, laughing after doing the said commentary on The View, and many people took that information that she relayed on a platform, I guess it maybe would have been Instagram or something to the sort, that it was a joke, that it was really about the money. This is a few years ago after doing the interview with The View. People felt like, well, you go on The View to cry and tell your story, and then afterwards you're giggling and laughing, and you didn't seem to be serious about, hello, Joelle, one of my viewers from Chicago. Thank you so much, sweetheart. She didn't seem serious. And I think people are going to judge you when you talk on these live platforms. You go talk about something serious, heinous that happened to you allegedly. And then afterwards, you're letting your fans, people know, hey, I just did an interview with The View. But you're giggling and laughing and basically saying, hey, I have my shine on. And that's how some people perceived it, that why would I take her serious with allegations that this man harmed her, when after this testimony to this live audience, she's giggling and laughing afterwards. I don't know. Some people did take her serious. There were a lot of negative things said about her information to surviving R. Kelly and that interview with The View. You're entitled to your interpretation. I think it's sad watching those children in this commentary. This was a interview done 3 years ago. No contact with the father, Mr. Kelly, and his children. Why not? Not paying her child support. Why not Robert Kelly? These are your eggs, your children with her, and you don't even want to pay child support. But you can take care of strange women in your house, buying them breasts and different things, abusing them, not abusing them. Because it costs to feed people. So even if I starve you for 2 days, I pick up and feed you the next 3 days, it's still money, if you all get my drift. This is crazy to me. Your own children, you won't have any contact with them, won't take care of them, won't pay the mother child support, but you'll take in strange women and pay an entourage of people to work for you, but you won't even pay for your own damn kids. See, this right here is ridiculous to me. Damn ridiculous to me. Why did she stay so long? Drill. I'm curious to her answer when the woman asked her why she stayed after the allegations of the sex tape. Well, I was dealing with my own abuse, blah, blah, blah. Okay, but still you're in a house where you have children with this man. People are talking and gossiping about him sleeping around with different women and filming them, because there were a lot of women in that video. It was interchangeably. One scene after another was of him penetrating another woman. So I'm trying to understand how in the world you could still lie down with him knowing the tape was out there floating around. And one of his so-called friends, I'm sure, released that tape to get paid. Because you have to ask yourselves, why in the world, one, is he filming himself having sex? Then he's married having sex. I didn't even know R. Kelly was ever married. I didn't even know he had children till all these allegations started coming out a few years ago. So what you have to ask yourself is the obvious. Why would you stay when the allegations started coming out of the tape? Why would you stay? You have children with this man. Why are you with him still? Pain or no pain? This is more pain to know he's been sleeping around with different women and there's a girl in the video that's 14 years old that he's having sex with. But he's denying it. And then he tried to get his brother to take the blame. So this shows you how narcissistic R. Kelly is. He tried to get his brother to take the blame as the culprit in the video. Why would you need your brother to take the blame if indeed that's not you in the tape? See, because you're admitting that that was you in the tape having sex with all those women. And you knew if the brother said, hey, that's me, then everything just die down and the case would go away quietly. But lucky for R. Kelly, 12 members of the jury from Chicago said, we favor him. And he was acquitted of all charges. He got away because he paid that girl's family off so she wouldn't testify. What does she have to say now as a grown person about being in that video? Because that's embarrassing to know that people watch you have sex with a grown man. And even if you're a grown woman, that's still your personal business. You engaging in a sexual act with a man or a woman. R. Kelly knew exactly what he was doing all these years. From the time he was hanging outside of Chicago high school, luring children in to bed them, he's always been aware of what he's been doing. He has always been aware of asking people to do favors for him because he was illiterate. They are also guilty for aiding him, having knowledge. Now, some people will play coy and dumb to say, well, I didn't never see him abuse anybody. You had a Caucasian woman say that during an interview that worked for R. Kelly in the recording studio. I never saw him abuse any women, verbally abusive. Well, you're not behind closed doors with them either to say what you saw and didn't see. And there are other famous people who will possibly say the same, that I didn't see him, abuse someone verbatim as far as physical or verbal, but he liked the women. He liked the ladies. That's always been said about Robert. And we now have testimony. He likes men too. He likes boys too. Very disturbing. And there are people who still remain fans of R. Kelly, refuse to believe that he's a sadist, refuse to believe that he desires sex with children, refuse to believe that he was even abusive sexually, verbally, mentally with grown women and men. And as many say, once you're grown, you're entitled to do what you want to do. If you want to stay with someone that's abusive to you physically, mentally, verbally, sexually, that's your choice. And many people have questioned that from the women who are actually grown. Why did you stay? Why did you go back? The one woman that stayed with them, flew in from Texas, was a DJ, blah, blah, blah. She was scrutinized. Well, you were grown. So why did you stay with him? You saw what he was about. You saw the other women. You saw this. Why? But as I've told you, women stay with men when they're not famous. So why is it a big deal because it's R. Kelly? It's not. It's only a big deal because his business got put out there and allegations were brought upon him publicly. But if he was just some regular Joe living in Chicago that loved to have sex with different people, it wouldn't have been no damn big deal. It would have just been, yeah, he's a whore. He's a male whore. He likes sex with everybody and everything. Use caution. It was only a problem because he was famous. Is famous. But men abuse women every day. Men seek out children for sex every day. Men rape children, women every day. Men abuse women physically, mentally, emotionally, sexually every day. They're just not famous. And they just haven't been arrested and charges brought forward. It is what it is. I'm going to see if Ms. Kinsley wants to give her commentary, then I'm going to check out of here and let you all have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you all so much for joining me. Thank you for tuning in.
Hello.
Okay. Last round. What do you have to say pertaining to what Miss Drea has said about her ex-husband, R. Kelly?
Hold on. I'm going to have to, I cannot hear you on this phone. Let me hang up and call you right back through IG.
Okay, that's fine, sweetie.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Thank you all so much for joining me. She's going to call me right back and give her a commentary. This is my mod, Kinsley Master. She's on the West Coast. She's going to give us her commentary pertaining to the information by Miss Drea. Hello?
Okay, now
Sorry about that. It's ringing again on the other device. I hate when it does that. Okay. Hopefully it'll stop. I don't know why it's still doing that. See? It'll stop here in a minute. Hold on. I hate when it does that. Okay, now it's not going to stop. Now what is the deal? Oh my gosh. It won't stop. Okay. Now I can get you in here so you can speak. Now, well, it'll stop it. Wait 1 second, you guys. It's ringing on the other one. Why it won't stop, I don't know. Oh my goodness. Okay, it's not gonna stop. This is strange. Usually it stops after a few rings. This is odd. That means I'll have to call you back because it won't stop. It won't stop on the one that I'm streaming on.
Okay, call me back.
Wait 1 second. Let me see if it'll stop. Hold on. Okay, it stopped. Go ahead. What do you think about his marriage to Drea? Sorry about that, you guys. What do you think about what she said about him hog-tying her wanting to kill herself when she was in Miami because of how he was treating her? Her reasons for staying with him because she was dealing with her own abuse, her own issues with him. I never even knew he was married or had children until these allegations started coming out with the women that he had. He was keeping in the apartment and the houses in Atlanta. Go ahead.
When I've seen her on that special on TV, I would think to myself, she had to have gone through something in her own life, that made her mentally weak, where she felt like she couldn't leave. There had to be more to her just being scared to leave. You know what I mean?
Could it be that the reason why a lot of the other women stayed and endured whatever they endured? Because he was famous. You enjoyed the notoriety of being seen with him, but you didn't like the way he treated you behind closed doors, but you were enjoying the luxuries of whatever he offered you.
It's very possible. And I'm sure that was part of why she didn't leave.
Okay.
She liked the money.
Okay.
She had the freedom possibly to buy and spend what she wanted.
Okay. I wonder if she has any, if she gets any financial support still from being married to him. Because what I find interesting is that he didn't pay child support. So why would I think that she's gained anything financially from him? But she's owed money, of course, because she was married to him and had children by him. So really, they're owed out. They're owed money.
They're all owed out. All these people. If he can afford this attorney that is not a public defender,
yes,
there has to be money somewhere.
Okay.
Hidden in somebody else's name. Where's it all coming from?
Well, originally when he got arrested for these crimes a few years ago, he didn't even have bond money, bail money. Some woman he knew in Chicago bailed him out, which everybody thought that was very strange. Because, when people are arguing and bickering, oh, he's got money. So it was like, well, he couldn't have any money because why is he going to this woman he knows to bail him out? And that was a nice piece of change, $200,000 or so plus for somebody to give up. And then later she goes to tell the judge, hey, I want that money back because I didn't know that you all had other charges on him in other jurisdictions. And so then the judge tells her, hey, lady, you're supposed to know all that before offering up your coins. You're supposed to read the fine print when you pay bail for a defendant.
Yeah, she's not getting that money back, not for a long
I thought that was real interesting. She came out and said, I want the money back because I thought this was the only charge in Chicago. I didn't know that other cities had a hold on him for other charges. And I thought, well, you should have asked somebody that before signing the damn bill. That's crazy.
Yeah, she ain't got no smarts either.
But let's talk about that. Who was this woman? What type of income did she have that she could put up that kind of money originally to get him out?
Well, I mean.
And why give it up? You understand what I'm saying? Why give it up whether you knew he had other charges or not? You're not, and if you're not sleeping with him, you're not having sex with him, you don't have a relationship with him, why are you paying money for a man that's got other women living in his house? It's crazy. Or you just a good friend?
Yeah, good friend.
A good friend. So what do you think? He was sleeping with her too?
He had to have been at some point.
Lord, that man must have a mean penis because I've never seen so many people want to be in this man's drawers. Literally.
I wouldn't want that thing is going to fall off at some point.
Let me tell you, I think the most disgusting information, besides the defecating and the urinating, was the woman who was staying in a hotel in, I believe that was Alabama. Her and her son or sons, and they had their house had caught on fire or something, and they happened to bump into R. Kelly at a hotel. They exchanged pleasantries, and then next thing you know, he's offered to help her and her children. And at one evening, they bump into each other again at the hotel, and instead of him offering any type of financial assistance, which he offered, he's asking her to perform oral sex on him. And she repeats this information to a certain platform here on the tube. And that information got out to the general public. And naturally, the person asked her, well, why would you do it? If you realized he wasn't going to give you the money to help you and your children, why would you then have sex with him? And I can't remember what her reasons were, but I think he offered money for that, for her to do that to him. And I thought to myself, there is no way. No way you should have thought he was going to pay you.
I wonder if he had told her, hey, I'll help you. And then, it was just a lie. It was just.
Well, but that's what R. Kelly has done with the women who got hoodwinked with him for the music career. That's his way of getting you in. Hey, you can sing. Let me hear you sing. Come to the studio, blah, blah, blah. The next thing you know, the studio goes from that to you're in another different place with him in a room, hotel, house, apartment. Now he's touching, groping, and you're having sexual relations. Now you got another party joining you. It's like little stair steps to this, to this, to this, to this. Before you know it, it's you're out there like you're on crack cocaine. You're trying fentanyl, heroin, you're doing all kind of crazy stuff. That's what it reminds me of. Just blatant experimenting.
You remember in that part of the docuseries where the girls were talking about the horrible living conditions he had them in? Like
in the rooms?
In an apartment, I think, or maybe it was in a room, but.
Oh, peeing in a bucket.
Yeah.
That's down in Atlanta. That's down in Johns Creek, very affluent area in Georgia, for those that don't know. I mean, living in a very plush house. So it's hard to fathom, because somebody went in the house and filmed the house. Very nice area, upscale community, and you're looking at this mansion and you're trying to visualize rooms painted dark, black, and somebody peeing in a bucket and defecating in a bucket and not being able to use the bathroom, roam the house, or leave the property. It's very, very, very strange.
I think he got off on torturing these ladies.
Yeah, because I heard women say they heard other women talking in the house. Living in the rooms, talking in the house, You knew when he brought somebody new in. So in my mind, I'm sitting here thinking, what the F is going on? But we learned at the house in Chicago, outside of Chicago, that house was gated. So when R. Kelly says you were free to roam out the property, that's not true. Because you could go look that house up now. There's a gate that surrounds the house. Naturally, the gate will be locked because that defeats the purpose of having the gate. So you can't say, I invite you here and you lied on me and said I wouldn't let you out. Well, it's gated. So how the hell would I be able to get out if the gate is locked? And they said somebody attempted to jump the damn gate to get out when they realized he wouldn't let them roam the house or, when they realized it was a trap. They ran out and went to try to jump the gate. Because I tell you who told that story last year. One of his security guys that was working for him said he ended up seeing a young lady or somebody trying to jump over the damn gate. So why would somebody be trying to jump a gate if they had freedom to roam the house?
He's a liar. He enjoyed torturing these people. He got off on this.
Yeah, she said that. Drea said that's what happened. She noticed one of the things about him is that he became controlling after the trial. I got a feeling he was controlling before that because I do remember a commentary from her where she said she had to knock on the door. That was one of the things that the other lady said about R. Kelly, is that you couldn't just enter a room while he was in the room. You had to knock on the door first, and then he would tell you to enter, or somebody else would say you could enter. So Drea has said that, and other ladies have also testified to that. So I believe that.
Yeah, I believe it. I believe a lot of what these ladies said. I mean, why would they come up with such elaborate stories?
Yeah, I don't believe everybody's lying about the not being able to roam around the house and not being able to enter a room that he was in. You had to knock first and wait for a response. See, my thing is, hell yeah. First trip we take off the compound, the very first time we go anywhere to eat, shop, I'm out of that. Where I can get to a cell phone and get some help. Huh?
I was watching that and I was like, well, I'm sure they had to go out in public.
Well, they did.
Why don't you run?
They did, but they didn't. But they didn't, and that's the whole point of, at some point, he took you outside of the compound, whichever house it was, apartment. You should have ran like hell. Called your mama, daddy, sister, somebody, call the police and say, hey, this man's kept me in here. He won't let me use the bathroom. He won't feed me. He won't let me go outside the door without being accompanied by somebody. That was even testified too, that they had a woman accompanying the two last ladies that were living with him, Azrael and Jocelyn. And I thought to myself, see, you should have never stayed. You saw what he was doing. You saw that he had this sick appetite for sex and deviant sex. He's sleeping with all these different women and men. He's engaging you all with sex with the other men and women. And a lot of the women told they didn't want to have sex with the other women and they didn't want to have sex with the other men. I mean, man, I just don't understand why stay. That's where I have the problem. But if he lured you in young, underage, you've gotten accustomed to the BS, whether you like it or not. And as I said, many women have done it. They just weren't with famous men. But damn, at some point, you see you're being degraded. You understand what I mean? Spiritually, sexually, you're being degraded.
Being degraded, you're being abused,
yes.
being tortured. You know, that I don't know anything about, the psychological mind and, being mentally ill. Like, what do you even, how do you even diagnose someone like that? Like, what is that? What kind of sickness is that?
Yeah, but he had issues. He had issues as a child because I think he was a quiet child. So see, what happened with R. Kelly is what has happened with many people. He metamorphosed into this machine. Quiet child who never interacted with other children outside, never played outside. I don't know if it's just he was the chosen one by the mother, or it was just something internally wrong with him to where he didn't want to engage with other children. And then he just was more musically inclined. And then you got these people touching him. So now his mind has become warped. So now this child who once was quiet, shy, not playing with other children, is now desiring sex and wanting to touch and do inappropriate things. Talented, but his mind he's been groomed. So now he's starting to act out these fantasies and things that were done to him. So he was gone on at a young age. I do believe that.
He got a little sense of popularity or notoriety or freedom, you know, when he became old enough and came to him, you know what I mean? Like, he realized that he could be vocal and he knew how to talk.
Right. And that's what's so interesting about the story. This is a child who didn't talk, didn't engage with other children growing up, because his brothers say he always stayed in the house. I don't know why he stayed in the house, but he stayed in the house. So you go from this quiet kid, musically inclined kid, obviously not literate. So that makes me think maybe his mother spoiled him to where she didn't focus on his school books, because it really makes no sense for a child not to be able to know how to read and write. Something's very odd with that. But he's musically inclined. So then he's going to school, but then somehow he drops out of school. Why? Why didn't the mother stay on him to finish school? So see, I think there was a lapse of judgment on the part of his mother.
And you know, as a grown man, I think to myself, you did not want to learn how to read and write.
Yeah, but you have to have somebody to rear you to do that, though. See, you're not gonna do no more than what people allow you to do. So he's a kid. So somebody wasn't making sure, he was learning in the house. So that's his mother's fault, because at some point she had them known her child could not read. So no way she did not know. Were you not helping him with his homework? Was he bringing homework home? So you have to think about all that. And yes, he's now grown. Why is he going to now want to learn how to read? He can sing. He can play the piano. I don't need that. I'm talented. I don't need to read. But that makes no sense, because yes, you do. You need to be able to sign your damn checks.
Yeah, you need to sign your check. How do you read the sheet music? I mean, wasn't that...
Well, he's probably played by ear.
Yeah, he must have played by ear. You know, he was very musically inclined.
Yes, he does.
He was very successful.
And that was part of his downfall, is not being able to read sheet music, read period. And then you've got this deviant behavior inside of you. It was a disaster waiting to happen.
Yeah, it was. Most definitely.
It's a very sad story, because R. Kelly could be way better than what he has portrayed to the public, and all his secrets and deviances being put out on Front Street. He didn't have to go out like this.
He went out with the bang.
Yeah, he went out with a bang. Well, what do you think is going to happen in Chicago? You think he will be found guilty?
Oh, yeah, I know.
What about Minnesota?
Yeah, I think he's going to be found guilty and everything.
Do you think he will decide by the time trial starts or before trial in Chicago to just forfeit it and take a plea for both cities?
I don't think he will, because he's a narcissist and he thinks that he didn't do anything wrong. So I think he's thinking, I'm going to take it all the way, because there's no way that I'm going to...
So that means he's basically signing his own death warrant to die in prison.
Yeah, pretty much.
But you see what happened with Bill Cosby, how that got overturned by the Supreme Court?
Don't even get me started on that.
I was just sitting here thinking that. I didn't say anything at first, but I thought, wait. Now, old Billy boy, his got overturned and he's free like OJ all day.
I heard something on Instagram. Somebody made a post about, you know, this whole R. Kelly issue.
Yeah.
And somebody says, it's my birthday. I need one wish or something like that. And somebody said to them, what are you wishing for? And he said, for Mr. Kelly and Mr. Cosby to become cellmates or bunkies.
Oh my God. Well, I doubt that, because Bill is free and probably not going to go back into the penal system. And as far as Robert, well, we will just wait and see what Chicago has in store for him. And we will see if 12 members of the jury from the Chi will favor him and let him off. But in the end, it really won't matter if they let him off, mistrial, whichever, not guilty. You still have the 30 to do in New York. And you still have to be remanded over to Minnesota thereafter.
He's not walking out of there ever. He's gonna die.
Yeah, he'll die in there. And that's what I think he's not focusing on. He's not focusing on the longevity of surviving and trying to savor a life outside of penitentiary. And that's why I said he should just plead out, and maybe they are all running concurrent and somebody will show him favor after several years locked up to let him out free.
He just needs to. It's a waste of the city's money.
Yeah, to me, it's all a waste. Shuffling paper, gathering evidence and investigators to go out and find more people to testify, flying people in and out. See, all that, people didn't think about none of that. What it takes to get people to come into New York, to fly in, they got to stay in a hotel, they got to eat. All of that, it costs money. It costs money.
It's not cheap.
It's not cheap. It's not cheap.
Not at all.
Well, I want to thank you for joining me, darling. My next commentary later on today, I'll try to come back and do a live after I unwind and take care of some business, will be transgender surgeries. I did a little research last night. I'm going to bring you all some commentary, stories of some people who have had the surgery done, complications. How do you feel about these surgeries? People changing their sex.
I don't know. I think that
I know how to bring some topics, do I not?
Yeah, that's one that people are gonna get crunk in your chat over.
Well, they can get crunk. I'm surprised I don't have any crazy people in the chat right now. Maybe they're somewhere getting turned up because R. Kelly locked up. I don't know. But usually I get some crazy people that want to come in and, they would jump on the stream. And I thought, nah, we ain't got no more streams. But Nubian, thank you. Yes, join me. Yes, the next subject matter after this live, later today, I'm going to bring you commentary pertaining to transgender people. Should the surgeries remain legal? Since abortion has been overturned, we were asking the question about gay marriage and gay adoptions. Will they be the next on the chopping block for the Supreme Court to overturn as well? And I decided to now go into the realm of transgender surgeries. The ramifications of getting the surgeries. Should they be legally done here in the US of A? Why are people wanting these surgeries when they're hearing of the ramifications and the things that can go terribly wrong with the surgery? Should they be legal in the US? Kinsley?
I think after a certain age, possibly, but not as a child. No.
Okay. Yes. The story I want to bring you is of a young man who was a young lady, and his plight as a child. His parents saw that he was always wanting to dress in girl clothes, dolls. He was very feminine as a child. You will hear him speak as a child on a live video that he feels like he was a girl. And he was young, very young, emulating a girl. It's very interesting information.
Yeah, all of that is.
And the complications with the surgery, that's what was baffling, is watching him lose, be disappointed when the sutures were coming undone shortly after having the surgery, like right after.
They can only do so much,
Well, you have to remember, it's not natural. This is how I look at it. It's not natural.
Right. It's not natural.
Yeah.
So your anatomy from a male to a female
Yes.
is not going to be like
Yes.
ours.
Yes.
Born as a female.
And I think some people, for those, not to be graphic, but some of you who want to follow this content with me later, you might want to go look up in the YouTube queue the procedure of transforming from a man to a woman. And you may not like what you're going to see. So you have to imagine yourself, or just imagine the procedure itself, trying to transform a male penis into a vagina, which is unnatural because it wasn't meant to be that. So naturally you will have complications because that's not what that body part was meant to do. It wasn't meant to be sliced into two and made into a vagina. So you got to think about urinating, being able to use the bathroom, also being able to be penetrated by a male organ, and also having sensation to enjoy sex. We're going to talk about all that in the next live.
That makes me hurt.
Listen, let me tell you something. Last night I was walking around in this place in the dark with chills, listening to the information of her talking about the surgery, the doctor's commentary. You're gonna really realize how dangerous this is when you start listening to the doctor and the other doctors performing the procedure, and they are bickering about the incisions while it's being filmed. It is the most baffling information I have ever seen.
No.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because you have another doctor saying to this surgeon, who looks like he's transgender, mind you, which that was said in the comment section, why are you cutting it like that? Why are you cutting right there? And he's saying, oh, I don't want any scarring. And then you have people in the comment section saying, damn it, it's a surgery. There's going to be scarring. It was the most baffling thing to see filming, it being filmed, and the doctors are disagreeing while the person is under anesthesia, getting their private parts turned into an alleged vagina. It is the most baffling thing I've ever seen.
No, it's never going to be 100%.
And then afterwards, her sutures are coming undone.
Oh, God.
She thought they were healing. And even the doctor who was making the complaints during the live feed, he says it's unusual for somebody her age to not be healing up properly after the surgery.
It's almost like the body was rejecting it, you know?
Yes. And it rightfully so should reject it. Why not? This ain't what it was designed to do. Yes.
Yeah, we're not robots. Our
Exactly.
bodies don't know.
Exactly.
You know how they're supposed to heal.
Yes.
You know, when we go under
Any surgery, exactly.
surgery, you have no clue on how
Your body's going to react because you're opening up a human part of the body. It doesn't matter if you're cutting on an arm, a leg, your face, you're opening it up. And it's not meant to stay open for a duration. You understand what I'm saying? Because you got to think about like heart surgery. Those surgeries can take hours. You've heard of surgeries going 6-7 hours. That's a long time for a body to be open. And you're receiving oxygen and all that to stay awake, to stay, woke. Your body, I don't think people really think about that.
That's why in those long surgeries, they tell you, like when my grandmother had open heart surgery, there was 2 surgeons. They switched off.
They have to switch. There's no way one person can operate for that. I think pushing, it's 2 hours standing up over somebody is a long time. Or 1 hour. You're still talking about 1 hour on your feet and focusing on what you're doing at hand on a human body. That to me is scary.
I just seen something on YouTube not too long ago, and they were talking about long surgeries and how the physicians wear diapers, like they wear Depends.
Oh, to urinate so they don't have to take a break. Makes sense. Makes sense. That's very interesting. That's an interesting topic. But people don't understand the person who's wanting this surgery. They're not thinking about a person who goes in to have something done that had a tumor. Well, that tumor isn't supposed to be in there, so the doctor's wanting to get it out, and the person wants it out of their body. That's different. You're talking about saying to yourself, I identify as a female or male, and I want to look like that sex. So now you've got up the money to pay this person to do this, cut you open, and try to mimic your body into the opposite sex. I don't think they're really grappling what they're doing to their body. And as for a woman, there's not enough tissue down there to make it look like a penis, because you now got to try to make it look like a whole penis, even if it's a small one, plus testicles. So where are you going to get extra skin to form testicles?
You have to make, how do you know it's even going to work when they're done?
Well, let me tell you something. I'm going to play you commentary from a woman from the UK. She's going to give you her testimony. She is now she, he is now she. And what she has to say is not good, because she's talking about getting urinary tract infections back to back, it being so painful. So you have to use common sense to know this new body now hurts to urinate out of a new organ. So if it hurts to urinate, then you know damn well it would hurt for a man to penetrate inside of that newly developed vagina. So how is that going to work when it's time to have sex?
it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. So that's another statistic I read. Most people who have the surgery don't even engage in sex because they can't. So what is the purpose in saving all this money to have the surgery, go through the ramifications, the complications, to only not even be able to, one, have feeling down there and engage in sexual activity?
To me, it's not even.
It's not even worth it. And many people, I believe, have regretted having the men I know changing over to a female because it wasn't what they thought it was going to be.
You know, they think, oh yes, you know, you can make a man have breasts. Okay, yes, you can.
Yeah.
And you can be a female and you
That's
can
easier.
breasts.
Yes, and I got that, and I was watching that commentary too. But the guy that had the breast removed, he said, I'm content just having the male chest, the hormones, taking the hormones, but I'm not trying to do anything with my private part. Because he probably realizes I don't got nothing down there to work with to make it into a penis. I got to have something to put together. And the vagina is just not enough flesh, skin, to form it into a penis. When you think about it, it's illogical. It's
really not.
It's illogical.
I was like looking down.
You were looking, wait a minute, you were looking down where?
I was just like, I was sitting here typing and I cracked myself looking down. And
Look, and you don't listen, and you don't even have to be naked to know I ain't got enough downtown to put and make it into a boy.
And I'm fully dressed right now. I was like, what?
Oh wow, let me stop right here. Thank you, dear.
You're welcome. I'll talk to you guys later.
Okay, thank you so much. All right. Bye, baby. All right, everybody, that's my mod, Kinsley Masters. Thank you, honey, for joining me for this live. Thank you all for holding on for the 3 hours. This is the said commentary pertaining to Robert Sylvester Kelly, R&B musician, who is now falling. The Pied Piper is no longer. He's been sentenced to 30 years in New York. He also has upcoming trials in Chicago, Illinois, and Minnesota. Will he bail out and take a plea in both of those jurisdictions and try to get them to run concurrent to the current 30-year sentence? Or will he pray and hope that 12 members of the jury in Chicago will favor him and acquit him of all said charges? But in the end, if that was to happen, he still will have the 30-year sentence in New York and also facing charges in Minnesota. I want to thank you all for joining me. God bless all of you. Have a wonderful week. If you'd like to donate to the channel and the dream, Everyday Shenanigans, $ Big Angie, 129 Cash App. All super chat stickers are welcome during the live. If you're a victim of domestic abuse, sexual abuse, know that there is help. You do not have to be a victim. You do not have to remain a victim. Know that you are worthy. Get help, because you don't deserve to be mistreated in any form or fashion by another human being. Thank you all so much for joining me. This is Everyday Shenanigans.